Good morning.
Robot. So
It's
really
9
wasn't
o'clock.
A local kid trying to get off.
In time for the Tuesday, May 24th meeting. If we could have a little quiet, please. It's 9 o'clock in time for the Tuesday, May 24th, 2016 meeting of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County. We're going to begin with an invocation by Jeff Smith, followed by the pledge led by Commissioner Wesley Davis. Please stand.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come today and to do the work that you have set it before us. Lord, you've placed these 5 gentlemen on this dais, and Lord, I just ask that they seek you and that you reveal to them what you want us to do. And as we approach Memorial Day, Lord, we ask a special blessing for all those families of fallen servicemen and women who have served this country honorably and defended our right to freedom. We also pray for first responders and the policeman that was killed over the weekend in Massachusetts, his family. Lord, just provide your comfort and your strength. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chairman, if I could, just real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, but I believe between Stan Bowling and Jeff Smith, they give the best invocations. So mine tend to be short and sweet, more Southern Baptist, but I tell you what, those are good. Both of you do a good job. Anytime we want to have a prayer off, it would be a close one.
Hey, Wes, you gotta give me a shot.
Yeah.
Would that be a blessing?
No. We'll move on to additions and deletions to the agenda. Gentlemen?
To the chair, if I may, I've got a couple just sort of timing issues. I see Commissioner Zork's item, which is 14E2, and also the public speaking item 10B2 seem to be related. I think it would make sense to have those combined. And if the board's willing to do that, I would respectfully request that 8G get pulled off the agenda, or not off the agenda, the consent agenda. This deals with the amendment to termination regarding the 16th Street ball fields. I think that will be impacted by the discussion that happens concerning St. Francis Manor, so I'd recommend that get moved back to 12C3 so that at least the county attorney has an understanding of the direction the board is going with regards to any necessary changes to the amendment to termination for the 16th Street ball fields. And finally, I got a request late last night, or comment to me was by Bruce Barquette, who represents the folks concerning the dock. I believe he had to leave early and was requesting that the item be taken up a little early, maybe around 10:30. Those are just the 3 sort of timing issues I want to raise for the board.
On the first, Commissioner Zork, is that all right with you?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so 14E2 will be joined with 10B2 and placed. Where did you want that, Mr. Engel?
I think that would be best at 10B2. Thus, if the board wishes, 8G will then be moved to 12C3, which then we'll have afterward, and thus I'd have the proper guidance from the board as
Okay,
to how.
so 14E2 is just with 10B2.
Yes, that would be correct.
So moved.
Second.
I do have one addition, if I may. I'd like to add a special presentation to be given prior to the other proclamations and presentations.
Okay.
And you promise this is going to be under a minute?
Absolutely.
Fine. Any others?
Amended.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
We will now then move to proclamations and presentations. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you remember last meeting, we approved the addition of a couple of 3D printers in the main library system. I thought this was wonderful technology. During the discussion, there was a question of whether they could print out a gavel, as Vice Chairman Flesher had taken temporarily hold of the gavel at that time. And I am very pleased to announce that the library system was able to print a gavel in 6 hours at a total cost of only $2, and multiple colors are available, and they have actually ordered the wood color. So with that, Vice Chairman Flesher, I present to you the first 3D printed gavel.
Thank you. Beautiful.
And that's just a sample of the technology we have and what we can do. So that's
Can I comment for just a moment? It has wood grain on it. This is carefully done, and this is a quality product.
It is.
And I want to thank you for your thoughtfulness, and thank the
Absolutely.
library and the technicians.
Vice Chair, may I try it for a second?
Yes, you could be the first.
Okay, Wesley, try to stay in order today.
You gotta pass it back.
Fine.
This is the
I
one he
can't
gets
get
to
away with
keep, yeah.
anything.
That's a short gavel.
Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you.
You bet.
With that, we'll move to the presentation of a proclamation and retirement award honoring Christopher Moore on his retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Public Works, with 21 years of service. Mr. Moore, would you like to come up? And if you'd like to bring some of your friends and coworkers with you, you're welcome to. They seem to be standing in the back.
That's close enough.
Well, I am very happy to read this proclamation, and evidently Chris did an awful lot during his tenure at Indian River County, so everybody's welcome to sit back and relax. This is going to take a bit. This proclamation is honoring Christopher Moore on his retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Public Works. Whereas Chris Moore retired from Indian River County Public Works Department effective May 31st, 2016. And whereas Chris Moore began his career with Indian River County as a county traffic engineer in 1995. In 2006, Chris was promoted to Assistant Public Works Director, and in 2009, he was promoted to Public Works Director and continued in that capacity until his retirement. As Public Works Director, Chris was responsible for directing 200 employees in 9 divisions, a $25 million annual budget, a $200 million capital improvement program, and all activities within one of the county's largest departments. Public Works is comprised of road and bridge, county engineering, fleet maintenance, beach coastal engineering, stormwater engineering, land right-of-way acquisition, telecommunications, traffic engineering, facilities management from 2010, and Parks Division until 2010. And whereas Chris Moore implemented the county's computerized traffic signal system, which has grown from 47 isolated traffic signals in 1995 to 148 interconnected, coordinated signals today. Under Chris's guidance and through a series of intergovernmental agreements, all traffic signals countywide were brought under county operation and maintenance. Chris brought the state-of-the-art Traffic Management Center to the County Administration Building, where traffic signals are managed from a central location. Chris acquired funding from the FDOT for many roadway, intersection, and traffic improvement projects. After the devastating 2004 hurricane season, Chris replaced span-wire traffic signals with hurricane-resistant horizontal signals mounted on steel mast arms and installed generator-ready signal cabinets for emergency power hookups. He made numerous advancements and innovations in roadway, intersection, and traffic signal design, signal operation and timing, vehicle detection, video monitoring, and congestion incident management. And whereas Chris Moore developed a fiber optic communications network which benefits all county departments. Utilizing the new fiber network and signal coordination techniques, Chris improved traffic flow on roads throughout the county. Chris also worked to open new transportation facilities such as 53rd Street between 58th Avenue and US 1 and 66th Avenue between Oslo Road and 49th Street. Roadway and street lighting improvements were done in Vero Lake Estates and Oslo subdivisions, as well as intersection improvement projects. Chris also fine-tuned and expanded the county petition paving and millage program. Under his direction, the Sector 3 Truck Hall Beach Restoration Project was accomplished, and a new ball field and multi-sport complex was designed and constructed at historic Dodgertown. He was also responsible for the new traffic signal adaptive control system, which is currently under construction and is expected to be completed this year. And whereas Chris Moore has served this county and the public with distinction and selflessness during his 21 years of service, he was a dedicated employee, and his work was greatly appreciated by his employer, citizens, and co-workers alike. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board applauds Chris Moore's efforts on behalf of the county, and the board wishes to express their appreciation for the dedicated service he has given to Indian River County for the last 21 years. And be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners and staff extend heartfelt wishes for success in his future endeavors. Adopted this 24th day of May, 2016, and proudly signed by myself. Thank you, Chris. but there's one more, shorter one, to read before we ask you for a few words. This is to certify that Chris Mora is hereby presented this retirement award for outstanding performance and faithful service to Indian River County Board of County Commissioners for 21 years of service on this 31st day of May 2016. Thank you, Chris, for your service to Indian River County.
I was looking at the proclamations. I thought, well, I felt real special being the first one listed there. And then I realized, you know, the two guys after me, Tommy Dupuy with 30 years of service and Patrick McNeil with 35 years of service, they were simply listing these in ascending order. You know, like a lightweight compared to those guys with 21 years. But I did want to thank the board, the administrator's office, attorney's office, all the county staff and employees, the sheriff, the constitutional officers. Everyone has been just unbelievably helpful and cooperative in my time here. I feel very fortunate and very blessed, actually, to have held this position and to be a part of the management team. And I appreciate it all, and I thank you all for a very rewarding career. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of my colleagues did ask for a rebuttal period, so I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, actually, I'm sure some of my fellow commissioners are going to want to say a few words, but before we do that, we'll ask if anybody from the Public Works Department would like to say something about Chris Mora. Come on up, please.
Well, I was going to have you be my assistant on the Elmo.
Oh, okay,
It's
yeah.
Role reverse. So, in all seriousness, can you put this on it? Just real quick, I want to show you just a couple pictures that I find very interesting.
Looks like Chris Jr.
This was, I was going to say he hasn't changed a bit. This was in the old hospital and probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then, can I lay on top of it? Another one is him concentrating. That's a look that he has quite often when trying to figure out something, and he always keeps the MSU behind him to continue to motivate him. And this was one of his first teams, which I found it interesting because we've grown so much over time, and unfortunately there's someone there that in the back that passed away, and it just shows you that retirement is really important because you don't know how much time you have. So this also, and last but not least, is the original Traffic Management Center. And
Wow.
I thought you might find that interesting for those of us that have been in the management room, and the commissioners and Mr. Ringgold, Mr. Zito, everybody here. That was the first brainchild of Chris, and John Ankney, who's here today, was side by side with Chris, along with the commissioner's support, the state, in getting this to be what it is today. But that's what it was. And we had a little shelf on the side that had the controllers to the left. And John was probably claustrophobic. He was very thankful when we moved in. So I'll keep that one up on there, and you can see how we've advanced. But for those here today that don't know me, I'm Jean Brissett, and I work for Indian River County Public Works Department, Traffic Engineering Division. Fortunately for me, Chris Mora has been my direct supervisor and division head for his entire career here. So for 21 and a half years, I've been able to work side by side with Chris, and I'm ever grateful for that. It's a bittersweet moment for me, and I am sure for many. I was thinking back this morning over the years, and I must say to you, Chris, that I will always be grateful for having such a professional, respectable person for our leader. For me and many others, you have been a mentor and a true leader by sharing invaluable knowledge and skills that I and many of us daily will use the rest of our lives. It's not only about traffic, it's about how you treat people, the things that he has done that has helped motivate us all through the different events that we've had. But with Chris's leadership style from day one and over the past 21 and a half years, every day has been an opportunity for us to learn, to grow, to improve, and he inspires that in the people that he leads. I know my coworkers agree with me that Chris's leadership style, we all became a skilled, strong, reliable, and loyal team. We've weathered many storms, literally and figuratively, professionally and personally together. And because of our dedication to the county, due to Chris's leadership of all of us in the Traffic Engineering Division during the hurricanes of '04 and any other events we've experienced, we have all been willing to do whatever it took to restore services to the citizens of our county. Chris is more than a leader. He's like a coach. And I've told him oftentimes he reminds me of a teacher that makes you want to excel in whatever task is assigned. So he knew what it took to get us to help him in whatever it was he needed to do for all of us. So this morning, I was led to a scripture for my faith. I kept thinking about Chris, and I just was led to 2 Timothy 4:7. And it says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Chris, you have finished the race, and during the race did an excellent job, and you kept the faith. I'm very thankful for that. I thank you so much for all you've done for me, for the Traffic Engineering Division, the Public Works Department, and so many others. Thank you, and you will be deeply missed. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, it seems like such a short period of time and how much technology has changed. And, you know, Chris, it's amazing and how you've been able to implement all that. But I'll never forget, every time I'd call Chris and complain about the traffic flow, I said, Chris, you need to look at these lights. They're not synchronized. I couldn't get anywhere today. He would always reply, Commissioner, they are synchronized. You're just going the wrong way.
How true.
You know, some days you'd think Chris is just sitting in the traffic monitoring room there. When he sees my truck approaching a signal, he just hits the red light button, and there it goes.
Yeah, we saved that for Joe Baird.
But Chris, it has been a joy working with you and getting things done. You've left some big shoes for Rich to fill. But as Jeannie said, you know, you've left a great staff, and they'll do the job, and we're just very proud of everything you've done. So thank you for your service.
Commissioner Davis.
You know, one of these days we're going to have one of these, and there's going to be somebody that recites the words of a country music song written by Johnny Paycheck that starts out, "Take this job and shove it." I didn't expect it today at all. In fact, one thing that I like about, and that I've had the opportunity to see many department heads, and as the department heads retire, it's interesting how they become the face of their organization and those that are with them as a team. And the thing that sticks out to me about some of the best department heads, in my opinion, are those that were truly statesmen. And when I say statesman, my version of a statesman is not just being that person that's attentive to somebody whenever they have an issue or in need, because sometimes the answer is no. It's because you can't, because it's not legal. But to be able to do that in a way at which that individual felt like they were treated with respect and dignity as a taxpayer of this community is extremely important, and is indicative of my entire experience with you as head of the Public Works Department. And so, on behalf of all the dirt roads in District 1, thanks for being that statesman.
Commissioner Zork.
Yes, good morning, Chris. Could you tell us about last winter season's ice fishing trip to the northern areas where there was no ice?
That was pretty tough because they had a warm winter up there, and ice fishing and winter sports are things that I like to do, and I miss that being in Florida. But yeah, it was pretty tough to find some ice, particularly thick enough to drag a shanty out on and to fish.
Well, maybe this winter will have better temperature results for you. But I want to say thanks for all your quick responses back during hours, after hours. You always responded back very quickly to constituents' needs that came to my office. Two special items where we had the ongoing debate of adjusting the stop signs at 74th Avenue and 16th Street. And amazingly enough, that small adjustment kept people from running that stop sign. And my guess would be is the accident count there would be reduced since that time. And it's nice that All Aboard Florida brought the 90% plans just before, and that you've had a time to, you'll dream about those in all your years of retirement, I'm sure. But thanks for all your years of service, and I'll save a few other things for the crowd on Thursday that might be more appropriate than on television. Thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, 20 years ago we met. You were walking into the sheriff's office with your little gym bag with Suzanne Rahani and Bob Keating. You were in the best shape. I don't know what happened. And I didn't know you. And I said, what is he, a detective, retired detective, something, another unit? And they said, no. So when I asked you, I said, why do you come to the sheriff's office gym? We have the best equipment. You said, no, it's free. So with that conservative approach, I've learned that you applied that in every step of the way. And I had the opportunity to work with you during the hurricanes, you and your staff. And you did so much seamlessly. And I'm just going to miss you. Straight out, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss those 4:45 on a Friday meetings. You thought they were C-checks. It was just the opportunity we had to make sure you had something to think about over the weekend. And to Rich, because you have left us in good hands, I want to thank you for your selection. I don't know what we were going to do without you, but looks like Rich is right on his game. But in passing that, and I appreciate that you've selected somebody to leave. You've left a legacy. You've left a legacy in this county, in just about every intersection, just about every project. You've left a legacy. You've left a legacy in the back of the room. The entire staff is here to see you off. I know they're going to want to attend Thursday, but you've left something, and that's the true mark of a successful man, that you can leave the legacy. Now, we know you live only a few blocks away, so if Rich gets in a jam, you just want to know that you'll be there as a consigliere to the project. So we appreciate everything you've done, and truly going to miss you. So, Rich, invite him as much as you can. Thank you.
Mr. Zito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, Chris. I feel very fortunate that I can be up here in this position today to address you directly and give you all of our gratitude and well wishes. It's an honor to have worked with you. We've been through a lot together. We slayed a lot of dragons, and through it all, I can describe your work ethic as second to none. I can say that with you have a quiet confidence that can only come with tenacious preparation. And it's that message that permeates down through your staff, and it shows through the whole Public Works Department. And I'm going to miss you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Chris, I'll just end by saying thank you very much for your service. We appreciate everything. And we wish you a very, very happy retirement.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Counsel?
Don't forget to pick up the flags on your way back. Chris, would you like a picture with people from your department coming?
Come on down, department.
Picture? Would like to come down? Anybody associated with Chris? You're gonna need some help.
No, Miss Meyer, you can't take the picture. You got to be in it.
Hold this one, it's got more. You look more important. Yeah.
To the left, Chris, about 3 feet. Right.
Couple of you move down, get on the other side of Chris.
Rich could block this thing. Chris is a little lower to the ground.
Oh, sure, the whole one's over here.
Chris,
Yeah.
Chris, is your family here?
They're preparing for the wave.
Here she is in the back.
Need a wide angle lens? You got it?
I think you're gonna have to move in a little bit. Scrunch up like you work together.
All right. 1, 2.
We good? All right.
Jimmy, you stay right back to Chris.
You have to build a wall for all these plaques. Got a lot of them.
To the chair, if I may.
Yes.
As Chris is walking out, it reminded me of a statement that people have asked me a lot of what they think about my job and how things are going down here in Indian River County, especially from my colleagues and friends back in Jacksonville. One of the things that I always tell them is how much easier my job is here when we've had great staff, not just in the county attorney's office, but as part of the departments that I get to work with every day. And Chris Moore is just a great example of when I tell them about the great staff that we have here, and I just wanted Chris to hear that.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll now move on to the presentation of a proclamation and retirement award honoring Tommy Dupuy on his retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Emergency Services, Fire Rescue, with 30 years of service. Good morning, and good morning, Chief King. I'm very honored to read this proclamation honoring Tommy Dupuy on his retirement from the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Emergency Services, Fire Rescue. Whereas Tommy Dupuy retired from Indian River County Fire Rescue effective May 30th, 2016. And whereas Tommy Dupuy began his career on June 13th, 1986 as a firefighter. He was honored in 1988 when he was assigned to the National Parks and Forests of Yellowstone to fight what at that time was the most severe fire in recorded history. It was said that he willingly performed seemingly Herculean tasks under the most adverse circumstances. In the late 1990s, he and his team assisted in the disposal of unexploded military ordnance from our South beaches. He was said to have exhibited impeccable personal standards of performance, forging ahead with positive energy, unbridled initiative, and tireless perseverance, which he continued to portray throughout his career, whether fighting structural, brush, electrical, marine, kitchen, auto, or wildfires. Whereas Tommy Dupuy has served this county and the public with distinction and selflessness. During his 30 years of service, he was dedicated, and his work and culinary skills have been greatly appreciated by his employer, citizens, and co-workers alike. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board applauds Tommy Dupuy's efforts on behalf of the county, and the board wishes to express their appreciation for the dedicated service he has given to Indian River County for the last 30 years. And be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners and staff extend their heartfelt wishes for success in his future endeavors. Adopted this 24th day of May 2016 and signed by myself as Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. And we have a second plaque, and this plaque is to certify that Tommy Dupuy is hereby presented this retirement award for outstanding performance and faithful service to the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners for 30 years of service on this 30th day of May 2016. Mr. Dupuy, thank you very much for your service to Indian River County, and we hope that you have a few words for us today.
Not much on speeches. It's been a great ride. I don't want to go, but it's time. Thank everybody, especially Chief King.
Thank you, fellas.
Tommy said that he wasn't much on speeches, and he doesn't like to deliver. I want you to know, in all the years, and specifically when we had the opportunity to work on scene, Tommy was the first one to run back to the truck on the next call.
Yes.
He didn't stand around and talk about anything. I think that was probably the most words I've heard you speak over the years.
It's tough to come up here and speak. I mean, that was my other family, and it just seems like I know where they're at, but I love my job. I love working for Indian River County, and always will. Always will. I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss it.
Mr.
On to the next venture.
There you go.
Commissioner
Tommy,
Davis.
we appreciate you.
Thank
You know, in addition to your firefighter family, it's nice to know your family and watch them grow from children to young adults.
Oh, yes.
And that's just indicative of the character of you and your abilities.
Thank you.
And so you're going to be missed, but enjoy retirement. You've earned
Thank
it.
you. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Tom.
Thank you all so much.
And thank you for your service. We will now have the presentation of a proclamation and retirement award honoring Patrick McNeil on his retirement from the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Public Works, Road and Bridge Division, with 35 years of service. Good morning, Mr. McNeil. I'm very happy to read this proclamation honoring Patrick McNeil on his retirement from the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of Public Works, Road and Bridge Division. Whereas Patrick McNeil retired from Indian River County Road and Bridge Division effective May 31st, 2016. And whereas Patrick McNeil began his career with Indian River County on June 8th, 1981 as a maintenance worker 5. On March 30th, 2001, his position was reclassified to senior maintenance worker, and he continued in that capacity until his retirement. And whereas Patrick McNeil has served this county and the public with distinction and selflessness. During his 35 years of service, he was dedicated and his work was greatly appreciated by his employer, citizens, and co-workers alike. And now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board applauds Patrick McNeil's efforts on behalf of the county, and the board wishes to express their appreciation for the dedicated service he has given to Indian River County for the last 35 years. And be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners and staff extend heartfelt wishes for success in his future endeavors. Adopted this 24th day of May, 2016. Thank you for your service, sir. But I have one more plaque to read, and this is to certify that Patrick McNeil is hereby presented this retirement award for outstanding performance and faithful service to the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners for 35 years of service on this 31st day of May, 2016. Thank you. Do you have a few words for us today? None.
I'd like to say something.
I hope you would.
I'd just like to say that though Pat's contribution to the county may not be as grand as that of Mr. Mora or that of, I don't know him, the firefighter, but Pat's service has been where the rubber hits the road. He's been the work of the foundation of Indian River County, that where whatever you guys say, we put in action. We hold up the citizens by the sweat of our brow and the strength of our back. And Pat has been dedicated in that service for 35 years, and he's done a wonderful job at it. And I'd just like to say that that kind of dedication is not around in a lot of places anymore for that type of job. It takes a special person to use your back for that many years to do the things that we do. And I'm going to miss him. The county's going to miss him because he's been an employee that's been worth having. Thank you.
And I'd like to say a few words. The Road and Bridge Department is really a key to a well-run Indian River County. And the workers there throughout the Road and Bridge Department are basically unsung, but they keep all aspects of the county in good shape, from the roads to the drainage areas. I know as one who walks greenways, just mowing the greenway on a summer day is not exactly an easy task. but all those little things that are done day after day by the Road and Bridge Department, while you may not get effusive thanks every day from all of us, I think all of us in Indian River County appreciate that work in our own way. And I'll take this opportunity to thank you very much for that portion of it that you've done over 35 years. Commissioner Fletcher.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Rich, when you said that about Pat's impact on the county, when we're not really supposed to argue with the individuals at the podium, I got to disagree with you. I've seen Pat out there. If anybody has done any yard work and they're out there at 95 degrees, they realize they have about a 15-minute span before they have to take a break or get a water. And this man has done that year after year after year. And I've seen him under the most stressful, tenuous, and heated conditions. And he's made sure that our infrastructure is maintained. So, again, respectfully, I have to say that that Pat has gone above and beyond and has given us probably the most grandiose dedication that any man can give. And I just don't know how he's going to adjust in doing the home stuff in 95-degree weather, because it does get hot out there, doesn't it, Pat?
Oh, yeah.
Pat's been short on words and big on work, and that's what makes this county so great. So I just want to say thank you and best of luck in your retirement.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Davis.
just want to say that this is a really good cross-section of, as we look at see the retirements here today, and just the many special things that we have as far as our assets in this community certainly are the employees that we have working here, be it the department head to public safety to keeping the roads beautiful and our parks clean. And so, commissioners, get ready for your smiley face here, but and many have had the opportunity to call Pat a coworker. He's married to my wife's aunt, so I get to call him Uncle Pat. So, Uncle Pat, I just want to say we'll see you Christmas Eve.
I got one thing to say. I'm going to make the county.
I bet. I bet. Thank you.
We will now move to a presentation by Rick Hatcher, Executive Director of the Treasure Coast Sports Commission, on the 2016 FHSAA Girls Softball Championships at historic Dodgertown. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner and fellow commissioners. Rick Hatcher, Executive Director with the Treasure Coast Sports Commission, and got a little presentation for everyone here. 2 weeks ago, actually 3 weeks ago, we started hosting high-level softball championships. First, the FCSAA, or the Junior College State Softball Tournament that took place at historic Dodgertown, and that was followed up 2 days later by the FHSAA State Softball Tournament. And over the span of that, you had a total of 52 teams that were in town, roughly over 10 days. In talking to several of the hotels in and around the area, they saw it as a shot in the arm for the May numbers. We'll wait and see exactly what they meant, but we were excited about it. But then part of it is I wanted to share with you each one of the head coaches and tournament officials received a momentum for being in this year's tournament, as well as each one of the players. Last year we had players' gifts. That was the pink visors and little ditty bags. This year we wanted to step up and give them something a little bit more special. So if you don't mind, I'd like to share with everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow.
Wow, nice.
And do you have another one that you can hold up to the audience?
Good. Let's see. This is a coin, a commemorative coin that each one of the athletes received, as well as the head coaches. And you can see it's got FHSA, the state logo for the softball. Then on the other side, the flip side, you have this, where it's historic Dodgertown. John Carroll Catholic High School was the host school this year. Treasure Coast Sports Commission, Indian River County, and of course, Vero Beach. And you know, it's significant that we have all of our partners listed on anything we give as a commemorative to this. The Treasure Coast Sports Commission, of course, I think everybody's aware of, is a collaboration effort over the 3 counties on the Treasure Coast. And as being the sports tourism marketing organization for this area, we're excited about having support from each one of these. Having Mr. Zito serve on the executive board, and Mr. Callan from Dodgertown serve on it, Michael Stutsky from Sebastian River High School. You can see the Indian River County is very well represented, just not only our board, but on the executive committee. We'll have to pay special note and bring to attention that if you remember at the start of the that Wednesday, FHSA, we had about 3.5 inches of rain. And you had the FHSA state commissioner sitting in the press box upstairs asking, what are we going to do? Are we going to have to start backing up days and now have to complete it on a Sunday for Mother's Day? Do we want to do that? Well, that starts impacting hotels. That starts impacting overlap to reservations. We assured her that the folks at Dodgertown and the staff that Jeff Biddle has got in place there, we could get the fields ready. And they started, and we got 2 days of tournaments in 1 day. Got back on track to start Friday for the 5 classifications, and went off without a hitch. There were long days, a lot of long hours, but having the support with the folks at Dodgertown, having the support with Indian River County Parks, and how they will provide the practice fields, it just shows that Indian River County and the Treasure Coast are great destinations to host events like this. And this was an extension year for the FHSA softball, and we have all intentions to put in another bid to host this for 3 more years. And again, thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Rick, you guys did a phenomenal job out there. I had the privilege of being out there for a couple of days
Yes.
during the girls' tournament. And Thursday, after the rain event, the fields were just stunning how good they looked. And you guys pulled it all off without a hitch, and a lot of hard work. So I greatly appreciate that. There was one silver lining about the rainout day. You know, you start with 16 teams on the first day, and 8 of them get eliminated by the end of the day, and usually those 8 teams go home.
Correct.
However, because of the rain delay, those 8 teams had to stay an extra night, so we picked up a few more room nights. So there's always a silver lining. And
Heads and beds, that's what we're talking
I always
about.
like to say it never rains on Dodgertown, but I guess a little sprinkle came through this time, but we'll let it pass. And you guys did a great job making up for it, so great work. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, you know, and not to take away from this event, but I think that the success that we're having and seeing at the historic Dodgertown, you know, right now, many teams have left for their regular baseball season, and they do have their minor league teams coming in, not to take away from that. But it's interesting whenever you look at the improvements that they're trying to make in St. Lucie County of a $60 million investment, where they're trying to add rooms, where they're basically trying to create a Dodgertown, is what I see. But more importantly, as that continues to hit on all economic cylinders, we're starting to see the cocoa. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it looks like they're trying to duplicate what we already have. And all I can say to that is bring it on. Competition's a good thing, so keep up the good work.
Thank you. Commissioner Zork.
Yes, thank you. And Rick, we got a chance to go out there and see part of the event. It's always nice to see Pops and the Team IP crowd that follows the circuit all across the country on, you know, all different sporting events. It's always nice to catch up with them. And I think this year, the Sports Commission, along with Historic Dodgertown, are looking at probably in the neighborhood of annually 25,000 room nights potentially this year, which is a significant driver to these increases we're seeing in our tourist tax dollar increases. So keep up the good work, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your support.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Rick, thank you for everything you're doing. It was a great shot in the arm. I just want to point out that in spending the day there, I got a chance to speak to many of the school representatives. And yes, they did bring in a few supporters. The average school had 15 to 20 attendees plus parents. But there was one school in particular that drove in with 3 bus loads. The principal closed the school to bring the students to the game. And that had a tremendous impact in the community. They traveled, they went to the mall and lunch, and it was, I think, far more. I think the estimates are going to fall short of the actual numbers. So thank you for the great shot in the arm.
Well, yeah, again, having the support that we have here in Indian River County, just to share that experience, we had as Mosley, or not Mosley, at Arnold High School out Panama City.
Yeah.
As they were leaving, the coach stopped the bus, went up there to the ticket area, and found one of the officials and said, I just personally want to thank you for the hospitality we've received here in Vero and at Dodgertown, and we hope this tournament never leaves historic Dodgertown.
All the way from Panama City.
Yes,
Wow.
and and being from the Panhandle up there, I know when you travel, you just don't come 2 or 3 people. It's grandparents, everybody's coming for
There it
this.
is. How about that? Awesome.
Great. Job well
Just,
done.
Rick, one last thing. One of these years, I'd love to be, if you could set it up where we could get an at-bat against some of those pitchers. I'd love to take a shot at it.
Not me.
So,
Okay, Commissioners, be careful what you ask for.
I want to do it.
You've
I'd
been
love
in
the
the hospital?
challenge. And, we can make it a fundraiser,
Yeah,
$10
yeah.
a pop, and it goes to the team or a charity or something. But I think it'd be a blast just to step in there and, take a few cuts at it and just, see it live. So
Yeah.
I'm sure my fellow commissioners
Yeah.
will join me.
I just hold the
Commissioner,
bat out like a
let me
bunt.
tell you how it's going to end for you. Strike 3.
But you know what? I can cross it off the bucket list. Great job, Rick. Thank you.
Rick, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the medallion.
Yes, thank you.
We'll now move to the approval of the minutes.
Yeah, one more presentation.
Oh, sorry, I always try to cut things off. We have the presentation from the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce by Dr. Tony Villamil, Washington Economics Group, of the Economic Impacts Brief for the Economic Development Return on Public Investment in Indian River County. Good morning, Helene.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Helene Castletine, Economic Development Director with the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce, and it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tony Villamil, the founder and president of the Washington Economics Group. Dr. Villamil has vast experience in economic development, having served as the Undersecretary of Commerce for Economic Affairs at the U.S. Department of Commerce, as well as the Executive Director of the Office of Trade, Tourism, and Economic Development under Governor Bush. We asked WEG, the Washington Economics Group, to calculate and demonstrate the return on public and private investment in economic development since 2007. The results are significant in both job creation and revenue generated, especially considering the recession we experienced during that time frame. So with that, Tony, if you would like to come up to the podium, and he can give you a summary of that report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helene. Thank you.
Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. My name is Antonio Tony Villamil, founder and principal of the Washington Economics Group. My address is 2655 Lejeune Road, Suite 1000, Coral Gables, Florida, 33134. Thank you for allowing me to present on a summary fashion the results of the study that I understand from Helene that all of you have had an advanced copy of it. So I'll be as brief as possible since I know you have a lot of chamber business to conduct for the county. The economic development impacts and the return on public investment are based on the actual awards that were given or paid by the county and all the investment made by the county on the chamber as their primary economic development organization for the development of high-wage, high-skilled jobs here in our Indian River County. So specifically, as outlined in the comprehensive plan, as all of you know, the chamber responsibilities to promote the counties for business relocation, retention, and expansion, and new business development, while the county provides multiple performance-based grants, incentives, or awards to qualified targeted companies expanding to relocate in the county. And targeted companies, and you have a whole list that the county has developed together with the chamber, are of course in the website of the chamber in terms of the high-wage, high-skill jobs. So what we're talking about here is changing the composition of the job mix towards higher wage, high skill, improving the household income and improving the economic activity of the county as a result of that. Those are what we call targeted businesses in Indian River County. The methodology that we use is pretty standard, and it's been widely used at the state level, at the local level of government in Florida and throughout the U.S., as well as in the private sector, to rank order investments by the public sector based on overall economic impact. And what we mean by overall economic impact, we mean not only the payroll, as well as the average wages. And in this case of the companies recruited by the chamber, with the county and chamber efforts, these companies, if you look at their payroll and their average wages, they're primarily significantly above the average wage of the county. So in that sense, we do have a significant impact on the county residents in terms of household income created and the jobs that are supported throughout the county. The methodology utilizes the so-called multipliers, it's input-output type economics, and is widely disclosed in the report of the study. Also, to be on the conservative side, we only included, in terms of computing the return on investment of the county in the chamber efforts as a primary economic development organization working with the county, we only included those that receive paid awards. In fact, the chamber has recruited numerous companies that are here creating high-wage, high-skilled jobs that go beyond those that were actually received the performance paid awards. The period that we covered was from 2007 and 2013, showed 21 companies recruited and located in the county through the chamber's efforts, of which 9 receive awards by the county for performance-based incentives. A final point that I'd like to make, too, is a couple of points. First is this public-private partnership is really the best practices for economic development being used in the U.S. today, and especially here in Florida. There are 66 counties, obviously outside Indian River, who want to eat your lunch. In other words, they're recruiting companies, working with the private sector, and investing. The private sector has also invested close to $1.5 million since the late 1990s, Indian River County private sector, in this chamber efforts on economic development. So it's a true public-private partnership in this area. So the 21 companies were recruited and located in the county through the chamber's efforts, of which 9 receive awards for performance-based incentives granted by the county. Another point I'd like to make is the difference between economic growth and employment and economic development. Economic growth, obviously, is increasing economic activity, and that's generated by the county incentives and the chamber's efforts in attracting industry. But jobs, the key is not so much the total employment of jobs, but the quality of the jobs in terms of higher income received by our households in the county. So the quality of jobs is one of the critical components of this. And we use household generated by the chamber efforts and the incentives provided by the county at relocating, retaining, and expanding the county's targeted industries, together with the estimated increase in local public revenues due to the increases in economic activity that are generated by these companies, to arrive at the total return on investment, what we call the economic development return on investment, which is a little different than the financial return on investment. It has to do with economic development, the household income that is generated by these high-wage, high-skill companies recruited by the chamber, and with the county incentives that have been provided that are performance-based. And if you look at the data, and there's a lot of data and statistics and that are contained in the report, but the bottom line is just taking a look at the period of 2007 to 2016, we have had The Chamber's efforts, together with the county incentives, provide support to over 639 jobs, with household income generated of $42 million. Now, interesting enough, in terms of household income, because these are high-wage, high-skilled jobs, about 70% of the household income generated in Indian River County as a result of these recruitment efforts. 70% come from what we call the areas of manufacturing, the area of knowledge-based services, and modern logistics. So again, that's one of the purposes of changing and diversifying the economic structure of the county. So if you take a look at the incentives paid by the county, if you look at the investment that you have made through the years in economic development, and you through 2007 to the present, and if you look at the economic impact using the numerator being household income generated, which is the key to increase economic development in the county, as well as the estimated local fiscal revenues per year of those paid awards. Again, we didn't include all the companies to be on the conservative side, only those that you paid awards for performance. You come out with a return on investment that is 15 times the actual investment by the county in the chamber efforts and the paid incentives. So I wanted to finish my remarks with that because I know you may have questions, and glad to answer them.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Villamil. I would like to thank you for the report. It made for interesting reading. And I'll just take this opportunity to thank the Chamber of Commerce for the work that they do for economic development in Indian River County. I think that the work that's been done, particularly over the past 6 or 7 years, which basically tied in with the Great Recession, is the type of thing which doesn't show up always too well, because we were hitting a Great Depression at a time when we instituted particularly the enhanced jobs credit, which I think had an immediate positive result for economic development. And while it may not have given us a boost to such a low unemployment rate that we'd like, it certainly prevented an unemployment rate from going much, much higher. And I think that's something that's sometimes lost in the economic events of the last few years.
Right, you have had a lot of good success in that, Mr. Chairman.
And we appreciate that and thank the Chamber for that. Anybody from the board want to?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the presentation.
Yes,
it's, the 15 times return on investment. I think it's a very, very conservative number, because we only looked at 9 of the companies that we brought in, and it doesn't factor in the efforts the county took to retain Piper and the CVS distribution center, and those are big payroll entities there. I know a lot of people don't like the idea of taxpayer-paid incentives and stuff, but it's kind of a necessary tool in the world we compete in. You've probably seen a lot of counties and cities similar to this. How would you rate our program as far as the incentives we do offer? Do you have suggestions of what we could do, either make them better or other things we can do to remain competitive in the world of trying to attract these high-wage, high-technology businesses?
Right. Well, the first thing is that you have an excellent business climate, and that's very important. Secondly, you have a very experienced economic development director, as well as the private sector effort. And we see counties in Florida that I work with all over the state that are more private sector and public sector driven to have much more success than those that have only a county economic development effort with no input and no skin in the game, as we say, from the private sector. For example, Broward County used to have a county economic development office, and they basically abolished that, and now it's a Broward Alliance, where the private sector works with the public sector in a partnership basis. So I think that's critical. The other element too is, and Helene told me that you're going to have the reception of, you're going to be meeting some consul generals that are located down south in the Miami area. Foreign direct investment is very important, and they need to discover the excellent business climate you have here in Indian River. And so I'm very glad to see that consuls from Spain, Germany, or the foreign investors, I'm not talking about real estate investment per se, I'm talking about actually investing in plant and equipment, in businesses from Spain, Germany, and so forth. So more international effort, I'm sure would help the Chamber achieve its even greater goals than they have at the present time.
Good, and with the private sector involvement, I see a lot of the members of the Chamber board and their leadership here, and I think in the last 10 years, 10 years ago, it used to be kind of the business leaders versus the local government. There was friction there, and I think we've really done a 180 on that. We've come together to where now the business community, the business leaders work very closely with the government, and we work with them, and we do provide a very unified front when we have a potential prospect here. So that's one of the things I think I'm probably most proud of over the last 10 years is how we have gone from working against each other to working together. So I'd just like to applaud. I see a lot of the chamber leader folks here, so I just want to thank them for their efforts in making this county successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Well,
We thank you.
Brian, thank you for saying that, because, I don't think any other county was hit so hard.
Yes.
I believe that our major industry was hit substantially, and without these economic incentives and without the relationships that the chamber has developed, we would not be in this position. I sincerely wish that Joe was here because, Mike, no offense, but I mean, Joe has been very responsive, and we're very fortunate to have the team and the relationships that we have.
You're diversifying, yes, sir, Commissioner. You're diversifying the county, and you're also, I remember that you hit almost a little over 16% unemployment during the Great Depression or Great Recession, and now you're down to 5.5 or so. So, and that will continue to decline. And it's also the quality of the jobs too that are being recruited through the county and chamber efforts.
Well, again, that was due to the incentives as well.
That's right, and that's part of the incentives.
There was many companies were compelled to revisit Indian River County, especially when we had an abundance of buildings that now had to be reinvented as well.
And you're being very frugal relative to performance-based. In other words, you show me the results audited by the county's budget office, and here's what the award would be, but you created X number of jobs in the targeted industries at higher wages than the average.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, no, having been here and actually been on the campaign trail in 2004, Commissioner O'Brien, you're exactly right. You could not say the word development, even if you put the word economic development together, without, at the time, ran out of town. It seemed like they were rationing off concrete. People were convinced that every corner of Indian River County was going to be paved, and the prices were high, and we've learned that there's nothing better for high prices than high prices. They have a tendency to take care of themselves in the marketplace. With that said, though, having gone through the Great Recession and sat up here as a commissioner to watch that what this community's gone through, like much of America, I'm convinced that we're not going to see the damage that the Great Recession has caused from families that have been torn apart, lost their homes, and the psychological damage that has caused on families for generations to come. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to know now that we do have a program in place and that it is being utilized and trying to diversify to get our economy away from so much related and dependent upon housing. And it's one of those things I'm very happy to see this commission as a unified voice on that, to again work with the private sector, with the leaders that I see out there that are sitting here today. Thank you. Because Penny, y'all remember exactly what I was talking about whenever it was everything that you were in favor of. There was equal or as many opposed to. But thank you for persevering.
Thank you. Any last words, Celine?
Yes. I just wanted to say thank you very much, Commissioners. We appreciate your continued support and collaboration, and the collaboration of your staff as well. So thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming up with the presentation.
Gentlemen, at the beginning of the agenda, we said we were going to move 12A1 up to help with Mr. Barquette's schedule because he has to leave by 10:30. I think now might be a good time. So we will move to item 12A1. And I believe Mr. Bowling's going to lead us off on that.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Stan Bowling, County Community Development Director. Roland DeBlois, our Environmental and Code Enforcement Planning Chief, will give a PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, I'm Roland DuBois, Chief of County Environmental Planning and Code Enforcement. This is a consideration before you today of a non-exclusive license agreement with Friends of the Morningside Dock, Inc. for use of a dock on county-owned land. The subject dock is located off South Jungle Trail, just west of Morningside Drive, a road to a one-street subdivision, Riverside Estates. It's just south of the county's Jones's Spear Conservation Area. The dock, just a refresher, this was considered by the board on February 16th. There was a discussion on this dock. It consists of essentially a small deck, canoe kayak area, and some 2 boat moorings out in the river. And here's just some pictures that, again, we showed last time we looked at it. When this did come to the board back on February 16th, again, this is a dock that was built on county property that the county got back in the 60s for right-of-way and drainage purposes. This dock was built on the property. From staff perspective, we believe it was built circa 2011 without permits or approvals. It came in for discussions, and there were 3 alternatives that were discussed at the February meeting: whether the county should just proceed and remove the dock, or potentially allow the dock to remain subject to after-the-fact permitting and modifications for use as a community dock for the Riverside Estates residents. And then the 3rd alternative was to consider keeping the dock, improving it for full public use and access, which may include various upgrades in county management. What came out of the meeting on February 16th, the board's motions and direction just kind of summarized. The item was tabled for 90 days, which is approximately where we're at now. And staff are directed to explore what would be entailed to allow the dock for community use or for non-exclusive use by the general public. The Riverside Estates residents who attended that meeting, who advocated the dock for community use, were advised to form a legal entity if the dock was to be considered for community use. And staff was directed, as an aside and complementary to the issues on Jungle Trail, to complete repairs of the Jones's Pier dock as soon as possible and open the docks for public use. And as a result of that direction, over the past 90 days since that February meeting, the Jones's Pier docks have been open to the public. They were opened about a week after that meeting. We finished the final inspections on the docks, and they've been open since then. Riverside Estates.
One short, is that a sunrise to sunset type, or is it 24-hour?
It's sunrise to sunset, okay. No overnight mooring.
Okay.
The Riverside Estates residents have hired their attorney, Bruce Barquette. They've met with staff. They've taken steps over the 90 days. They've created a nonprofit corporation formally, Friends of the Morningside Dock, Inc. They've submitted a boundary survey of the dock location, which verifies, as we reviewed it from staff perspective, that it does meet required building setbacks as it is. They met on site with the county building official to go over what upgrades would be needed to meet county building code requirements. They've submitted what they're called dock rules for group members, which was included in the backup that was submitted with the packet. They've also submitted a proposed non-exclusive license agreement that would not exclude general public access. Just here's the official certificate of status, so they are formally Friends of the Morningside Dock, Inc. I think in the staff report we kind of put in some words and took some out, but this is the actual official name, Friends of the Morningside Dock, Inc. Here's just a blow-up section of the survey that was conducted. Again, as I indicated, staff has concluded it does meet county's building setback requirements. When we brought this to the board in February, we did outline from staff perspective certain conditions that should apply if it was to be considered for community use. The first was the creation of a community entity, since there is no homeowners association in the development in which they did. And that entity would be responsible for managing the access and use of the dock for the community, but not to the exclusion of the general public, of carrying liability insurance naming the county, since it is on county property, and that the Friends of the Morningside Dock would be, or that community entity would be responsible for all after-the-fact permitting, management, design, and upgrades to the dock as necessary to bring it into compliance. The group, through their attorney, did submit a proposed license agreement. An agreement does, again, it's essentially for use by the group or the licensees, but not excluding the general public as it was drafted. Again, it reflects, as mentioned, and recommended that the county be named as insured on the licensee's liability insurance. It indicates that the licensee or Friends of the Dock would be responsible to correct any maintenance deficiencies any time they were just inspected by the county along the way, and that the agreement would terminate if at any point there was a disincorporation of the Friends of the Dock group, or if they failed to correct any violations of license conditions within a specified time frame. What's proposed, when we brought it to the board in February, there were the three alternatives. What's being proposed now under the license agreement is somewhat of a hybrid between the community use, whereby the community or Friends of the Morningside Dock would be responsible for maintenance and upkeep of the dock, but it was written such to not exclude public access. If the public went out there, checked out the deck or on the deck, they would not be prohibited from doing so under this license. They're not excluded from the access. And so we kind of see it from staff perspective. This is kind of a hybrid of the two, but from the benefit side, you have a community entity that's invested in the dock and will be responsible for the maintenance. And any upgrades would be their cost, not the county's. So with that, staff's recommendation, and this is somewhat revised in the staff report recommendation after talking with the attorneys. There's a question on whether the county should be named as an insured before the dock is finalized or after. We wanted to make sure it was all up front when they were working on the dock if it is approved by the board. So what we're recommending is a revised license agreement and what was attached with Friends of the Morningside Dock, approved by the county attorney with 2 additional sections within the draft license, requiring proof of insurance to be submitted to the county attorney within 15 days of execution of the agreement, and that permits obtained in the dock improvements brought into building code compliance within 6 months of execution of the agreement. And with that, that's our recommendation.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any questions for staff? So I'll go with Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, just, is Mr. Barquette aware of the 2 conditions, and do you agree with them, Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. O'Brien, yes, we discussed them yesterday. I appreciate it.
And you're okay with it?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Actually, as we're getting to that, I believe there was one other issue, although it won't be a new section. It'll just be a modification of one of the sections. In the indemnification language, it'll include indemnifying us with regards to the occupants' families, their guests, and their agents, and the public at large will also be included in that. So we'll modify that section 6. And Mr. Barquette actually had emailed that language to us, and we were agreeable
We
to that.
also discussed that, and that's fine.
Okay, great.
And just real quick, the Property Owners Association is not a voluntary property owners association, is that correct?
It is.
It is.
Yes, yes, sir. It's the people that
okay.
want to participate in the dock.
Not that it would go away, but what kind of check mechanism would we have in place on this for 20 years from now? I probably nothing to worry about, but.
Well, if it's ever disincorporated, that's a matter of public record.
But if it's ever disincorporated, then it goes away, and then the county's back in the situation.
The county, then it goes away, the license is automatically revoked unless they reincorporate within, I think it puts 60 or 90 days. So.
Are you the registered agent on that?
I am, yes, sir.
And
I won't
Commissioner,
be in
just
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
Commissioner Davis, to your question, the agreement, any improvements, and they have 6 months now to bring it up to code. So if the license agreement goes away, all of the facilities revert back to the county. And at that point, we'll have a up-to-code.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but that's really not where, I mean, if it were a requirement to be a part of the property owners association to live there, then clearly this would be one of the many things that they would put in their budget and take care of, and have, it would always be on a checklist basis.
Yeah, one thing there, I don't believe we have an up-to-code dock for the county, though, as I understand this.
No, they have
No.
6 months to get it.
No, but I understand, I'll ask Stan. My understanding from this is that you get it up to a community dock standard, not to a county dock standard.
Right.
In other words, it will not be
ADHD
compliant.
No.
Which, which if it were a county dock would be required. Is that the case or not?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
In terms of this will not meet the standard of a brand-new, county-owned, open to the public, invite the public ADA access like you'd have, for instance, at Round Island Riverside.
Yeah.
We don't have one actually at Jones Pier as a historic structure. There were some exemptions from accessibility, although we have parking there. So I think from a couple of perspectives, this would not be a good open to the invite the public dock, because there's no parking that's available near it. So what this really does is at a community standard that it'll meet the building code for community dock. It will not meet invite the public, have programs and that sort of thing as far as accessibility goes. But it will be non-exclusive. So the way I look at it, nobody from the public will drive and park along Jungle Trail and block the trail and use this. There is some parking for the Jones Pier property off of Jungle Trail for those piers that are further to the north. But somebody walking down Jungle Trail or biking down Jungle Trail, they could go out onto the deck of this dock once it's repaired. And the building code type of repairs will be, as you've seen from the pictures, right now you have to actually walk down onto the shore and back up. Excuse me, that'll be worked out, but you're correct, it won't be a public facility, ADA access, handicap parking space, ramp up, and that sort of thing.
Stan, is there anything short of somebody checking the articles of incorporation on an annual basis? Is there an easier way of confirming that Bill has an answer?
Yes, thank you. Bill DeBrock, County Attorney's Office. The insurance company won't insure if the company is dissolved, and so then we would receive notice as far as the cancellation of insurance,
That's what I was looking
which
for.
would encourage us to take a look at the corporation.
That takes care of my issues.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of staff?
Not a question, just a comment for Bruce. Thanks for working this out. I think this looks like a pretty good workable agreement, and I think the residents up there, the majority of them, and Mr. Mustapek, are pleased with the outcome, and I think it'll be a great asset
Well,
to keep.
thank you. Actually, it was a pleasure to work on this because I think it's a great outcome, and your staff did a great job of keeping us in line and letting us know what we need to do, and it was just all the way around. It was a good situation. Also, I want to thank you for letting me come up early. I realize that that's unusual. I normally enjoy spending my time with you, but this was needed, so thank you.
Anybody else from the public want to speak on this issue? Gentlemen?
Move staff recommendation.
We have a motion from Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Flesher. Before the vote, I'll just note that I'll be voting against this. My understanding of this is that it's an illegal dock, not built to code, being approved by the use for the general public, but not built to standards required for the county's own dock, even though we have a county dock within walking distance to the north. So for those reasons, basically, I'll be voting against it.
I'm going to vote for it because that's quite frankly as it should be.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Motion passes 4-1. Commissioner Solari voting against. And with that, we'll go back to the regular order of the agenda. We have minutes to be approved.
Move approval for both.
We have a motion from Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien for both the regular meeting of April 12th and the regular meeting of April 19th. Thank you, gentlemen. Oops, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Move to information items for staff.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull C for a short update from staff on how wildly successful this event turned out being. If Kendra or James would like to just come up and maybe.
And I'm going to pull A just to publicize it. And
I'd just like to, we have a retirement for Jack Reschek.
Reschek.
So,
Reschek?
Yeah.
Why don't we just
for his
retire?
How many years of service it was, but from retiring from the emergency services, fire and rescue, and appreciate his service.
Fine, why don't we just start with A? On May 25th, 2016, there's going to be a review of all aboard Florida's 100% plans. The public is welcome to come to this, It will be in Building B at 1 o'clock. Everybody's welcome to come. The plan will be there. I'm hoping that Chris Moore will be there. This will be his last time to engage the public and bring them up to speed on the plans for the crossings throughout Indian River County.
Commissioner, sorry if I may on that. It's from 1 to 3. I think the Public Works Department's contemplating it just being kind of a revolving door. People show up when they want. It's not like if there's going to be some presentation at 1
It won't be a
o'clock.
workshop or anything like
Yeah,
that. It'll be available for the public to come, look at the plans, ask any questions of staff who's attending. With that, we'll move to Commissioner O'Brien.
Just, again, the retirement of Jack Rishak for 27 years of service in emergency services, fire rescue. Appreciate his service to the county.
On behalf of the board, we thank Mr. Rishak for
Thank
his
you, Jack.
service. And item C, Commissioner Zork.
Yes, James and Kendra, one or both come up, and as they're coming up, that the first Lionfish Fest turned out to be a great success when you run out of tickets and food and everything else you have to sell, and the educational booths have waiting lines for the public to hear more about the lionfish issue. I'd call that a great success, but maybe you can give us some details on the numbers. Thank you.
I agree. For the record, my name is Kendra Cope. I'm the Coastal Environmental Specialist for Indian River County's Public Works Department. And as you may be aware of, the county was part of the inaugural event to combat the environmental and economic impacts of the invasive lionfish called the Sebastian Lionfish Fest. County staff, including myself and Alexis Peralta, along with the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce staff and Captain Hiram staff and many other great key players, planned and organized this event, which was held on May 14th at Captain Hiram's in conjunction with the state-declared Lionfish Removal and Awareness Day. This event consisted of a fishing tournament, educational public outreach, and local chef lionfish cook-off. So as Commissioner Zork said, I am here to kind of report a summary of what we believe was a very successful event. We had 4 registered fishing teams who brought in a total of 31 fish that day during the event. We had 10 educational vendors set up in the parking lot of Captain Hiram's. This included a local student who did a science fair project that was brought to the state level competition, and he worked on lionfish attraction to fishing lures. It also included FWC, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and the local Vero Beach Marine Lab, who conducted public displays of research and data collection on the 31 fish brought in that morning, as well as 20 additional donated fish for research from our fish supplier. And then lastly, the cook-off included 6 local chefs who prepared 6 different dishes of lionfish for the public to taste and vote for their favorite. In total, there was 300 pounds of filleted fish, which our fish supplier estimated removing about 1,750 fish to supply this order. After the event was over, as Commissioner Zork said, all of our fish was gone. And all of our attendees, which was over 400 people in total at the educational cook-off, devoured and delighted in these dishes. And so overall, we're estimating over 1,800 fish removed for this event, for the production of this event, and we are looking forward to hopefully getting support for another one next year.
Yes, it was a great afternoon, and with the number of people wanting to try the different varieties that are out there, I only got to taste one. You announced who was the winning chef or restaurant that actually won the and this was by each person that purchased a ticket would then have a chance to vote on one of the 6 samples that they got to taste. And who was the final winning chef?
Absolutely. So after everyone had voted on their favorite dish, after being encouraged to try all of them, the public's vote for their favorite was Citrus Grill House, which was a seared lionfish over these delicious noodles that they prepared. So yes, Citrus Grill House was the winning. Scott Vericchio was the winning chef of the cook-off, and then also Team Lobsterman was our head winner for the most fish, which they collected 24 total just for their team in the fishing tournament.
Oh, it's nice to see how, being at a Beach and Shores conference, heard about lionfish, reached out to Bob Hickerson and Chris from Deep Six Dive Shop to learn how this problem is growing, shared it with the Beach and Shores Committee. Then that moved through that process and brought in the Sebastian Area Chamber, and Beth and all the folks up there just did an outstanding job. And I'd say when you have 400 plus paying attendees at your first event, that's pretty darn good.
It's impressive. It was, as we like to say, we think it was successful.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kendra, I can tell you that you'll probably have at least one more team sign up next year. A couple guys I know that like to dive the 90-foot stuff. When they saw the size of the winning largest lionfish and the $800 prize, they said, man, we saw a bunch bigger than that. So I think next year you'll have at least one more team entering. So good luck with it.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Move on to the consent agenda. Gentlemen, I'll note that 8G has been moved to Attorneys Matters 13-1. Would anybody else like to pull anything else? I'll ask if the public would like to pull anything from the consent agenda to be discussed. Gentlemen?
Move approval.
We have a motion from Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Very good. And with that, gentlemen, I think this is a great time to take a 10-minute break. Board of County Commissioners meeting, and we'll move to item 10A1, public hearings. County initiated request to amend the text of several elements of the county's comprehensive plan. Good morning again, Stan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This particular item is a number of amendments to the comprehensive plan, but they're meant to be updates to the plan itself, not a real necessarily a policy struggle type of issues, but there are a number of elements and sub-element that need to be updated. So this is a county-initiated request. There's been a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission. That occurred in April. You have the minutes attached to the staff report. This is a transmittal hearing, and this is the hearing where you all decide whether you want the amendments to move ahead. It's not the formal adoption hearing. What would happen if you move ahead? This will be transmitted to state and regional review agencies. We'll get their comments and then hold a final public hearing where you can adopt these amendments, and we estimate that will be in August of this year. And if approved, the adopted amendments are transmitted to the state and regional agencies, and the comprehensive plan is thereby updated. And again, the purpose of this particular request is to update some out-of-date items. It's been a while since we've taken a fairly comprehensive look at the plan itself to do updates. Planning staff, especially Sasan Rahani and Bill Shute, have worked with other departments. We've appreciated their work. We've worked with utilities, solid waste, parks and rec, public works, the MPO, and the county chamber of commerce, and we appreciate their efforts. And so a lot of this information really comes from them. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend that the board approve the proposed text amendment. And I'll just summarize the changes. There are a number of them, but again, they're meant to be updates. In the future land use element, we're looking to postpone some completion dates to some more feasible dates to complete some items, not changing the policies themselves. We're also looking to reflect the City of Fellsmere annexation and how it affected the number of acres in the unincorporated county for the industrial park area out by Interstate 95 and 98th Avenue. We wanted to clarify and really cross-reference our utility connection policies, which were recently changed, rather than try to rephrase those just to cross-reference that policy.
What does that mean?
What that means is that before, the approach was to the policy in the land use element tried to state exactly what was in utilities, and now we want to just cross-reference whatever exceptions are in the utility element that's what we're going to be going by.
What would that mean to Epic Missions and the church and the?
Nothing. It would mean it's a cross-reference to the utility section of the comp plan where the change was made.
So this isn't just a way to try to stop what we did with that?
No.
Okay.
No, by no means.
All right.
And it's meant to keep us from having to change it whenever it gets changed in the utility
Okay.
sub-element.
Appreciate it.
The other, couple of the other policies in the future land use element to revise and recharacterize blighted areas in need of redevelopment, to change the term, to really eliminate the term blighted and change it to areas in need of redevelopment or revitalization. And then also, I know as you all are familiar with, there's no longer an enterprise zone. State legislation changed on that and is now adopted as enterprise area, so we needed to change some of the text in the future land use element. With respect to solid waste sub-element, we've actually already completed one of the policies, policy 4.2, in terms of evaluating mandatory collection. The proposal here is to now take that policy and put a 2022 date on it for reevaluating mandatory collection within the urban service area.
And that wouldn't change our customer convenience centers?
That's correct. This is a policy to reevaluate, and on all the issues will be looked at, excuse me, by 2022.
Okay.
Also, to postpone some completion dates for recycling and transferring waste to another regional facility. Those are proposed to be moved out. And then in policy 4.1, to put specifically in food waste as one of the items to be considered for expanding the recycling program.
Hey,
yes.
Stan, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Going back to 4.2, the reevaluation date, the current franchise agreement we have was for 7 years, is that correct?
I'm not familiar with that myself.
Would it?
Yes, it is for 7 years with 3 additional years possible.
Okay. Would it make sense to change that date to tie in with the expiration of the franchise agreement?
That's a good question. We tried to put in a date that we know we could get it, that's feasible to get accomplished by. It could certainly come up earlier than that and could coincide with that. I tell you what we could do. For that particular point, we can get back with utilities and try to make sure that it ties in with that date. So it's
I think that would just make sense, because if you're going to go out for a bid again, then that might be a good time to reevaluate.
And they may have already taken that into account in this date, but we'll check on that.
Thank
And
you.
again, that's the type of thing, if it changes between now and the final hearing, that's not a state issue, that's a problem.
I think maybe Vinnie has a comment on that.
For the record, Utility Service Director Vincent Burke, that date does coincide with the termination of the initial 7-year term. We didn't know if we would extend it for another 3 years.
Okay.
There was something in the provision of the franchise agreement, which the board may or may not recall, which is to say that there's a CPI increase inflator adjustment that takes into effect in 2018. So the board still has at some point a decision to determine whether or not they would like to consider, going to universal collection services. But right now we're working with our GIS folks to try to come up with an idea of how many folks have voluntarily connected right now to waste management. We don't have those figures right now, but we hope to bring that back to the board shortly.
Okay, thank you, Vinnie.
With respect to the transportation element, there are a few proposed changes. One is to remove dates for certain items to focus on periodically rather than annually reevaluating certain sidewalk or bike improvements. It doesn't need to be done each year, but to be done periodically. There's also, with the sidewalk fund that you all have established and that shows up in our CIP, we actually think that should be considered every year with the CIP. So we're making a few adjustments there to kind of follow in line with the practice you all have put forth in the last few years. We're also removing an outdated reference to a federal funding source, and we're implementing a complete streets policy that's been adopted by the MPO in our sidewalk bikeway plan, and it's to really have the county, when a public works county project comes forward to evaluate opportunities for complete streets, it may be as simple as sidewalks or bike lanes, that
Stan,
sort of
can I
thing.
interrupt that? In addition to the complete streets, what I'd like to see, and it may be is actually GO line hub stations.
Right, and that is part of the intermodal. It's not just sidewalks and bike paths, but it's also transit as well. So that's part of the complete streets look.
Okay, and I would like
Evaluation.
to float the idea to this board as far as the hubs to require that the hubs be on public property somehow. And the reason for that, Commissioners, I'm having a fit with the one at the north end of the county, the 510 and 512. It's a great spot for, as far as the location. Everything else poses a traffic hazard, and it's just a little bit too far out of the way to use the North County Aquatic Center, because one of the routes is really stretched thin, trying to make it there on time. And I just think that, Commissioners, you could probably appreciate this with what happened in downtown Vero, or Old Town Vero over there. It's one of those things, they really need to have restroom facilities, and they really need to be on public property, even though they're using that street basically as a staging area. And at the, on the half hour, there's 5 buses lined up right there, using the entire south half of the street. And it just creates a problem for those individuals that are trying to get to the light on County Road 510 and 512, and it was brought to my attention by the residents of Fisher Lake Island and Sebastian Crossings.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And I understand the issues having there in the North County. If we say government-owned only, there's 2 long-term possibilities of future West County hubs that might be part of a site plan, might be part of renegotiating a current agreement, or
part of County Road 510 widening. Just, as we do 510, it's going to terminate right there at County Road 512, and that could be a part of, if we plan it right. It's kind of, the location is good. I can't argue with the location as far as.
Commissioner, instead of just putting it in a plan, why don't you come back before the MPO, bring the issue up at an MPO, and I think that you'll get support to direct staff to move as quickly as possible to work towards some long-term solutions. Because if we just put this in a plan and let it sit there for 3 or 4 years, we may miss coming up opportunities.
Yep.
And I think that even if we don't want to initiate something immediately, that the planning portion of it may be done best now rather than waiting 3 or 4 years when other things that we're not paying attention to might have transpired. So the MPO staff has been very aggressive in how it's worked and developed the goal line, and I think that they'll run with this pretty hard if they're given direction at an MPO meeting.
Okay.
So that'd probably be a great thing to add to the next MPO meeting.
I'll do it.
So I'll just suggest, as the consensus of the board, that this be added to the next MPO meeting, and ask the acting county administrator to direct if you direct the MPO staff to add it to the next meeting.
And Mr. Chairman, I think in terms of what Commissioner Davis has brought up, policy 4.10 as proposed will help. It will mean that with a public works or a project that they will look for opportunities that include bus stops or hubs. I think it's also true that you probably want to keep room for public-private partnerships. It's going to make sense, for instance, in traditional neighborhood designs and mixed use, where we encourage that. So we want to keep that door open as well. And you don't necessarily have to go through the comp plan, the county's comp plan for that, because we're dealing with cities as well. So, but it certainly makes sense to have it discussed at the MPO meeting.
And it's specifically the hub. I have no problem with
Sure.
the hubs. It's the hub.
Understood that. And I think as MPO, as the transit system has grown, we've probably seen hubs migrate to publicly owned sites because of conflicts in shopping centers and so forth.
Exactly.
So it's difficult to maintain that public-private partnership, and they don't tend to be permanent. They do evolve, so we recognize that. So we'll make sure that's discussed at the MPO meeting next. But this should help.
Okay.
In terms of economic development element, we appreciate the input from the County Chamber of Commerce, and we're updating several references throughout the text that the Vero Beach Airport is no longer a municipal airport, it's a regional airport, kind of a higher level status, and also to reference the Career Source Research Coast and what's going on with that. To change some frequency and due dates for different items that are proposed and required. Also to reference the recently completed target industry study that you all approved, and then to make the changes to the enterprise zone versus the enterprise area that's needed in several locations. Also looking to, we have a consortium of life sciences actually established now, but to have the policy be to maintain that. We need to delete a policy that references the Professional Services Advisory Committee And there are a few other text amendments, all supported by the Chamber. We appreciate their work. Also, there's some dates for completion dates that are not really realistic in the recreation and open space element, good policies. So what we're proposing are some more realistic completion dates for a variety of tasks involved with that. In terms of amending the comprehensive plan, every time that we have a proposed amendment, we need to see if it meets one of the criteria for justifying or warranting a change. And in this case, there's a substantial change in circumstances. And a number of circumstances led to the changes that are proposed. The annexation, changed state statutes, organization names, recent updates to the other elements of the plan to make it consistent internally, committee recommendations, some studies have been completed, and we also have some outdated references. So there are plenty of good reasons for getting the plan up to date since it's been a few years since we've done so. Staff's recommendation, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, is that the board approve the proposed comprehensive plan text amendment for transmittal to the state. That involves approval of a resolution, and as this process moves forward, we'll be looking for a final hearing approximately in August. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Stan. Any questions for staff? This is a public hearing, so I'll now open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody from the public who wants to speak on this. Anybody from the public who wishes to speak on these changes? We will now close the public hearing. Colleagues, Stan, you and your staff did a great job with these proposed changes. Gentlemen?
Move staff recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner O'Brien. I'll give the second to Commissioner Davis. Any other discussion?
Oh, that was me.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Zork. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We now move to public discussion items. We have a request to speak from the Gifford Economic Development Council regarding updating Gifford community activities. Good morning. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. I'm Wanda Scott from the Gifford Economic Development Council. Give me just a moment here to give me just a moment to, I have one of the from the business district, Mr. Brown, who will be accompanying me, and there are a few board members, Gifford Economic board members in the audience. Give me just a moment here. I have ready reference from our research team. Now, before I proceed, I'm Wanda Scott from 4306 26th Avenue. One of the things that I like to do, because one of the things I like to do is reward those who have really made a difference the last couple of months. And Mr. Richard was assigned to me under the leadership of Chris Mora. And the short time that I've known him, he's been a man of his word. So, because he's been a man of his word, is Chris Richard still in here? There he is. I got something for you. Now, are you a 2X man or an extra large man?
Extra tall.
You're a big tall man? Oh. Okay, I want you to wear this proudly. This is one of our designer shirts. It says, straight out of Gifford, Florida. He earned this. And he's done some things, which you'll see on the video that I'll show you earlier, that he's made some immediate corrections within 60 days. So, straight out of Gifford, Florida.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Keep up the good work. Now, this other shirt is a 2XL. I don't think anybody's bigger than a 2XL up here. So anyway, I'll hold on to this. I'm going to go right into my presentation. Give me just a moment here. I was here a few weeks ago, and I'm back again. And I'm excited because I am seeing a difference in the community. The monitoring of Gifford, of the blighted areas, it really requires a full-time staff, just the monitoring. You know that I write for the Ebony News, former Treasure Coast Chronicle correspondent. And one of the things that, between the editor and I, he says, I need some stuff. I need some stuff from the Gifford area. I need you to be, submitting stuff. And I says, I just don't have the time, because the monitoring of Gifford is 28 hours, and it's only 24 hours in a day. So anyway, I'm trying to start to spread things out with the research team, the business district, everybody taking several duties, so it's not all on 4 people, but spread out. So I come before you regarding a few issues, and public safety is still a concern, especially since we had that tornado Tuesday, and we didn't have our culverts to collapse like Fort Pierce, but I'm glad that we are paying attention to those, and that was one of my concerns I have been addressing with you for the last 3 months. Efficiency and effectiveness and quality of services, deliverables, taxation without representation, the breakdown of the community to being reduced to a hood, and then the solution, repairing, turning it back into a community. And really at 2016, I just thought about it. I says, out of the 4 blighted areas, there are no other communities before you, year after year, talking about poverty issue. So we should be past this. And working with Richard and a lot of you, hopefully 2017, we will be talking about issues such as housing and economic this or economic that, and get beyond this poverty issue and turn this around. So I'm working with you all, and I thank you for all of you being patient. This is my reading materials called The Bridge Out of Poverty, and it's just like going page by page, street by street, as I go through these pages. It's like they wrote about Gifford. They wrote about Walbasso. They wrote about parts of Oslo and parts of Fellsmere. This book here, this is good reading, but hopefully we'll be beyond this by 2017, and that's my hope, by coming before you, working with you, providing information, even getting letters back to Richard, which I have not done. Like I said, I have just been swamped. But I want to talk about the appearance. What is an appearance? That's the way that someone or something looks. The act of performing or participating in a public event. The act or fact of appearing as to the eye or mind or before the public. The way of looking that is not true or real, the action of appearing, the fact. I'm sharing that with you because we're there. There's one other area, it's a definition of stewardship. Stewardship is an ethic that embodies the responsibility, planning, and management of resources. The activity of jobs of protecting and being responsible for equal budget, because we pay high taxes or higher taxes for our blighted community. The position and duties of a steward, a person who acts as a surrogate of another, or especially by the managing resources. Appearance, stewardship, those are the 2 reasons I want to talk to you today. And that's going to take a while, and that's going to take several, but the appearance of what's happening right now and what we can do to change things is why I'm here. There's several systems in River County, in the municipalities, the management of the blighted areas. It's questionable, but we're not going to address so much that today. We want to talk about the things that I want to follow up of the things that what the reason why I came here, and those were the culverts, the updates, the improvements, the still areas of concern. Mr. Brown's going to talk to you briefly about several of the areas. I'm going to start my video, and at just a couple of places I will narrate, but the pictures pretty much speak for themselves. Now, what I did, I'm very fair. All of the improvements, or quite a few of the improvements with the blue flags, the paint, the changes, I have that in there, showing that the county is doing some things to change the situation. Is that ready yet? Okay. And then Mr. Brown will speak along with that. That area, that's right off of 45th Street by Gifford Middle. And I was making a comment to Richard about how all four of my tires are bald, because you're turning off, that's 45th onto 27th. And you see how that road is, that's a reflection of quite a few of the roads. And a lot of them have eroded because of the rain and them scraping the roads. You can proceed. Proceed. Okay, that's right over there by 35th. That's one of the head walls that's incomplete. It doesn't have a head wall or a topper, I call it. It's just the brass steel hanging out, 35th and 49th. I tried to get them 49th, 45th, 43rd, 41st, but I'm working with technology. Proceed. Some of the pictures you will see that's also off of 49th Street. And there's been some effort to improve that. And that's the drainage. I never would have saw that unless I would have gotten out. I got out of my car and I walked up to the embankment, and that one's off of 35th, and that's the head wall. It's concrete bags. You can see the galvanized pipe. It's about ready to go. But Richard is aware of that. I just checking that a couple of days ago to see had that been improved. 35th Avenue, 49th Street. The management of Gifford, that's a culvert that's not attached, it's just sitting up there. That's off of 49th Street. Some of the pictures may be similar. I was trying to get the best angle. You can proceed. Because I think we're seeing the same thing, aren't we? Okay, that's a culvert. There's no bottom to that. I'm not a photographer. The management of this is taking me out of my comfort zone. I'm a reporter. Stop right there. You see the tree? I was reading about promoting aesthetic development, and we really, really liked the trees off of 45th Street. My concern on a couple of the trees, or the type of tree, which is, I thought that was a palmetto bush, but my son says it's not. And we have quite a few right by 40th, right by Davis Temple Church off of 45th. And why I'm bringing those out, and I think I had mentioned to Richard, when you drive to go on to 45th Street, they are right in their blinders. Those trees are designed for bulkiness. They grow bulky, they're kind of short and stumpy. And I don't know what the thought process for selecting, if that's a palmetto or if that's a Chinese palm, I'm not sure, but it does obstruct the view. And I saw a lot of those in the bushes. So that's right over there by Davis Temple Church off of 45th Street, where a lot of times where the officers are parking. But that was one of my concerns. She can proceed forward. See the trees, what I'm talking about? And they're just gonna grow bushy. And that's actually at 45th Street. So when you come out, you have to go to the, that's 45th Street, you have to go out into the road in order to see either east or west. Gifford is a beautiful place. Oops, that wasn't so. Wait. No. Okay, you probably went in. Oh gosh, I hope you don't get those other pictures. Okay, that was last year about this time when they started on 43rd Street. And that's really what kind of got the Gifford Economic and Development Council involved, because 43rd Street between 28th Court and 29th Avenue was closed for a long time. We saw people working, then we saw people not working. We saw trucks, we saw vehicles. So there was a long gap of time when there was no work done and that road was closed. And I'm sure there's an explanation. But because of that, it piqued the curiosity of the community. They're like, what is going on? What's taking so long? What is this? What is that? And they actually pushed me out there. I was in my comfort zone. Go see what's going on. But I did it. And so that's why I'm here. You can proceed. Road closed. Finally, it did open after the 4th of July. And when it opened, we saw some grave discrepancies, gross discrepancies. This is 43rd Street between 28th Court and 29th Avenue. And you see them removing the culvert, the galvanized pipe, and the replacement. This is me working at 3 this morning trying to get those in order. My daughter, she failed me, so I had to put, sorry about all these extra pictures, but the road closed, it's just showing you the length of time, and those are dated by day, photograph dates that the road was closed to. That's why you see that Road and Bridge was there quite a bit, but when it wasn't, it was just closed. Why is that significant? Because once they did come aboard and they reopened the road, there were some gross errors where installation of galvanized pipes that were bent, worn, and needed to be disposed. That road right there, when it had a concave dip, I think I gave up photographing after 22 times of the road and bridge coming out to repair, 22 times. And that kind of makes me think about efficiency and effectiveness of repairing that area. But that was like the gate, that was the portal to other stuff. We probably had no intentions of looking at 45th or 49th or 41st Street, but this became quite a, I don't know, a journey. That's one of the, that had to be replaced. I said, why would they install a bent galvanized pipe? That was an old pipe. And I think I went to Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Davis had somebody out there. They changed it, they reconfigured.
I'm a 2X.
Yes, within 2, and he is efficient and effective. If I had another shirt like a 2XL. Okay, you can proceed past that because we spent quite a bit of time. And that was kind of hopeful because that's right there off of 58th Avenue, what our area should have looked like. But sorry about those upside down pictures and blurry. That's off of 29th, 43rd and 29th. See how those galvanized pipes, those probably were put there in 1920, and you can see they are not effective, and that's why we have a lot of flooding. And I don't know if they're connected or not connected, but if you, go past all of that. You can go past that. We had a lot of erosion. That's why I say 22 times. So I don't want to get stuck on that, but that's what brought us here. 43rd Street, 28th Court, between 28th Court and 29th Avenue. You see, we do a lot of studying. That's my fault on all those extra pictures that shouldn't have. Oh, that's the cleanup off of right by Mosley Groceries, 43rd Street and 26th Avenue. That was another concern. We noticed they did eventually, after the community had worked on that house for about 2 months, the county put a dangerous sign on it. It's like, wow. And the people really work hard to take that area from a eyesore to something that was ecstatically pleasing to the eye. Some of these are Gifford businesses. That's not really what I wanted to show you. Okay. Those are Christmas decorations for Gifford, but that's not really what I wanted to show you. You can proceed past that, past that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ms. Scott, I'm going to have to ask you now if you could sort of focus in on the main events for today and
okay,
bring us forward.
I appreciate that. And that's my filming, my my technical work, but I'm going to get better at that. So anyway, the reason why that I'm here is about efficiency and effectiveness. When work is performed in our community, that it's performed correctly the first time, and when it's completed, that the end results, if there's a hole dug, that the hole is covered up, then sod is put back. We have a lot of areas that are left not complete, such as, which was wonderful, the right-of-way when the tractor came through, they cleaned back the brushes, but from the brushes and the bushes, there were a lot of bottles, there was a lot of debris and trash that was now exposed. And I said, wow, that would be great if we had like maybe 4 or 5 people that just could go through Gifford and do the cleanup. But that was a job. That was awesome. But it also brought about another problem, which was it was not as aesthetically pleasing to the eye because it exposed. But we can begin to bridge that gap by either having additional people, or once the job is completed, someone goes back and then that's their job, is to bring that area all the way up. In order to come out of the blighted status, we must have more completion on jobs, being that the jobs are either efficient and effective, and all the deliverables come through. Mr. Brown wants to talk to you about the waterway system off of 45th Street. With all of the rain that we had, the tornadoes that we had, it brought about something else. So, Mr. Brown, go ahead. Let me move over here to this side and bring that up.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Name is Winston Brown. I've been living in Indian River County since 1963. So all the improvement and the downfall, I done seen it all. But my main reason for coming here today is the way they're doing the road. I done seen it paved at least 3 times since I've been living here. And every time it paved, it started flat. Then they get a little hump, then they get another hump. This time it's gonna be a bigger hump. Okay, the water is running from 33rd Avenue coming back toward the school from west to east. And it need at least 3 drains up under the road from the south, from the east to the west to go up under the canal, go up on the road through the canal. So we have 2 drains right below my place of business. It's right across from 31st Avenue. So when I saw what they was doing, I didn't say too much. Now I noticed they're getting ready to pave, and there's no drain still there from Smith Store to Gifford Middle School. There is no drain from north to south. So when the water come down from Smith Store on 32nd, come to my place, it turns and run right into my property to the next canal. And the northeast part of the road. So I stopped on the guy, that supervisor, the one from in this room. I went and spoke to him back in that corner over there. I don't know his name. I think his name is Richard. Okay, I pointed out to him, and he physically came up and visited, and I showed him what's going on. Now, they have 3 drains they did from, what's the name of the church?
Mount Sinai, the old Mount Sinai?
Yeah, the one that's in there. They have 3 drains they did from that way coming east. But when they reach Smith Store and 32nd, there's just no more drain from there to Gifford Middle School. So the water pits off the road to the north, or to the east, whatever that is. And it make a big mess. And now they're gonna put another slab of pavement on the road. It's gonna make it higher, and it's gonna impeach worse. So what I asked him, I said, why aren't you putting a couple drains between 32nd, 31st, and 28th Court so the water will run? Because even Gifford Middle School, if you go there and look, it's got a hump. It don't have a drain. So the water run toward the railroad track, I will run back towards my property where the bridge at. We need at least 3 drains there, sir, 3. From Smith Store towards Gifford Mill. So they drop up on the road and in the big canal. They got to have it. No need of doing the whole property, paving it. It's like putting a Band-Aid on it. It ain't gonna serve the purpose. So I'm bringing it here to show it up to you so you could take a look at it. I don't know if it's too far gone, because to me it looked like they're getting ready to pave the whole street. So I don't know what you could do if I'm too late, but it needs some more work. And I spoke to Richard. Richard said they don't have no money. I said, you don't have no money. I already paid my tax. We don't have no money. We're gonna put a sidewalk, and when they put the sidewalk, they're gonna completely condemn my parking lot, because all the tractors and stuff that run over my parking lot, they crushed it up. I said, what you gonna do about my parking lot? He said, that's your property. That's not right. So I'm asking the authority, take a look at what's going on there. Before you pave the road, they need 3 drains from the north side to the south side, so the water, the pitch, up under the road and go in the canal and go whichever way you want to go.
Sir, what's your street address?
Sir?
Sir, what's your street address?
My mailing address, or where my business is 3050 45th Street.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
I wanted to add something too, excuse me, that was the pictures kind of threw me off. Okay, on the 41st Street, basically the Gifford area from the low end of Gifford to 28th Avenue, and then we start to go west. When we were taking pictures, and I was hoping to capture that, we looked for culverts, we looked for drainage. When we first saw the first drainage, it was on 28th Avenue on the east side of the street, but the west side was, I would say, a little bit more connected. We do have a problem, gentlemen, with drainage. We brought up last year at the final fiscal budget about the pond, and we were told that that connects the drainage of Gifford that goes into the pond, but there are no connectors. There's nothing. So when we had the tornado Tuesday, we had massive flooding, just like Vero Beach, but we had it in Gifford too. The low end of Gifford, the other side of Gifford, there is no drainage. Now, I'm going to ask, if possible, that we can get a diagram, or not a diagram, a schematics of the drainage and where they're connected to, because physically we saw nothing. I had some pictures up there, but somehow I didn't get it right. Where the drainage start, if it's connected, which way is it going? But there was nothing physical from the railroad track up until 28th Avenue. And I know we're paying $10 on our parcel on the ad valorem taxes. Did I say that correctly? The ad valorem tax, which comes to about $19,000 a year. Yeah, we're
MSBU, isn't it?
Yeah, we're paying, I think it's $19,000 a year. It comes from the Gifford area, which is drainage. And here's one of those taxation without, I don't know what you call it, representation or deliverables. So we have something either in place or not in place, but we need some diagrams and we need actual placements to see whether the drainage that's there, if it's efficient or is it effective, or neither. But it kind of goes back to what I was saying about appearance. Did you have anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I just want to make it brief. I would like for you to take a good look at that situation, the drainage from Smith Store towards Gifford Middle School to the bridge. It is all going to be paved, and the drain system is not hooked up. We need some water to go up under the road to the canal. And he said he cannot get it done because he don't have enough money. It don't make no sense. So take another look at it and see what you come up with, sir. Because my property is right there, and the water, when they put another slab of asphalt on it now, it's going to even pitch right in a hole. And, you know, it ain't going to be there the rest of my lifetime because they ain't going to pave it no more for a long time. Me and your grandchildren probably be there. So I'm asking you to take a good look at it, sir.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Yeah, I just want to see, Rich is here, and again, the paving project was delayed subsequent to the identification of at least 4 drainage issues that had to be resolved prior to the paving. And I wanted to ask Rich if this area that he's speaking about was assessed, and was it incorporated into the drainage project?
For the record, Rich Sperga, Assistant Public Works Director. The answer to your question is no. I visited after the drainage that we're replacing. Those were existing culverts. Mr. Winston's property, I've been out there several times. I've talked to Mr. Brown, several times about this. Right now, we do not have a plan on how we can get the water across the road, and I want to look at it further. A couple of things that are a problem right here. Number one, we don't own the right-of-way in front of Mr. Brown's property. His property actually butts out or jaunts out into right to the edge of the roadway. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to address. The second thing is within a couple of years, and this is what I told Mr. Brown, within the next year or two, I think it's 2 years, we have a sidewalk project that's coming down to replace some more of the sidewalks in this area. When we get to that point, I told Mr. Brown that we would figure out a solution to get the water that currently runs between his buildings, because his buildings are lower. I would say they're equal to or lower than the road at this time. It's always drained this way. We have gone in there and done resurfacing over the years. I did some research on that. This particular project, we milled before we put the new asphalt down, so it's not really going to change the elevation that was there. However, the road was higher than this area that we're talking about, and the water does come from the east and the west and runs down between his building. And doing it, according to Mr. Winston and the discussion I had with him, it's been doing it since he can remember. So we are aware of the situation. I just could not fix it at the time of this project was going on. I just do not have a full solution. They are correct. There's a couple other places in this area that need to be addressed. We need to research and look at, but we just can't do it that quickly. They're out there paving today. They'll be done this week. We can stop the paving if the board desires. But it'll take weeks, if not months, to fix this problem. And it's an issue that we need to research further. There is probably a solution to it. We just need to address it in a forward manner so that we analyze the entire area.
It is a public concern, though. It's not a private concern.
It's both. It's a public concern. We do have a drainage system in there that basically the water runs off the road through between his two buildings and down into the canal. Again, it's historical drainage. It's been doing it for years and years and years.
And I understand if it was ill in the past, and we're going through the process of paving and beautifying 45th Street and doing the plantings and future sidewalk, why wouldn't we not want to ensure that we're not having outfalls onto the property?
Okay.
You know, at the point of improvement, you know, I would like to make it as best as possible now, as opposed to looking back in the past and then going to the future.
Okay. But let me, real quick on the history of this project. This project was a beautification project.
Right.
Okay? Did not address drainage at all. Did not address the water system at all. We found problems. We've come to you. You know, the board has authorized us to fix a lot of the existing drainage that was there. We've never analyzed what the drainage pattern is for areas that don't have drainage. We did not do that. We are aware of this situation, but we were not able to address it in a timely manner. I'm concerned about just slapping an inlet in and draining it across the road to the canal.
But we did that in the lower end, and we did 4 outfalls to ensure that there was drainage towards Old Dixie, and we ensured around Gifford Middle, but just...
These were existing. This is a new one that we'd have to permit and put into the system. The ones we fixed were all existing.
How long will it delay the project? I mean, I realize that we've heard about the delays of the project and the delays of the paving, and yes, you know, it has added significantly to the lack of timeliness, but we'd like to make it right. I mean, how much more would it take in order to ensure that we don't have the outfall into the property? I mean,
I'd have to delay the project a couple of 3 months of the paving. If I was to pull the trigger today, I'd have to make sure that the roadway could suffice for the next couple of months while we came up with a solution for it.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Davis.
I don't know that we're going to answer the total question here today.
No.
I appreciate the history of it.
We can't vote on it.
But, and it's not something to vote on right now, but I think that clearly our Public Works Director in the waiting has got or elect, I should say, is on top of it, and that it's been brought to their attention to be able to move forward. And I think if we could, Mr. Chairman, move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think at this point I'd just like to suggest 2 things. One is that you certainly leave Mr. Winston's property when the project is done, in at least as good a condition as it was prior to the beginning of the project. I think that certainly we owe that to Mr. Winston. And second, you've got I think it's a CDBG project with the drainage on 43rd. And that, there's a sort of somewhat misconception that that's a drainage project for Gifford. But my understanding is it's a drainage project for a section of Gifford, and we're trying to improve that drainage now. So not in the next months, if you can, that is your department and not Vinny. So if you can, as you go forward with the project, develop a good, clear maps which both define the area and the area it will serve and how it serves it, and then as time allows, build up to a bigger understanding of the drainage of Gifford as a whole. But I would start with that CDBG project so that we, and the next time we bring this up, we can clearly tell the people of Gifford what that pond is meant to control, or to where the water is supposed to drain from geographically, so that everybody can at least start there, and then use that as a springboard to get a better understanding of the community as a whole.
You can do this.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
One more thing I'd like to say.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rich.
If you wait a couple more months and get that straightened out, that made 45th Street almost water-free for the water going into the canal. Is it easier to go 5 more years by the time you do the sidewalks and whatever you say you're gonna do, than just wait a couple more months, figure out what you're gonna do for the next 3 or 4 drain to go from north to south, clean that out, and then you have a nice and decent, beautified 45th Street. Instead of have it leaning one way to the school and going high all the way to 43rd. I know what you're saying, but I mean, it's been delayed for how many months now? It ain't gonna kill me.
It would have been better if, I mean, we've been working on this project for a couple of years.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, and this is the first time I've heard about this specific area with this. Okay, so given that, and given that the community's been waiting for the project to get done, I believe we need to, 2 things. One is we need to get it done, and then there are limited funds, and the board didn't hesitate for a moment when the existing culverts, we found out after a heavy rain, were collapsed.
Yes.
And I believe that was about $350,000 extra in order to get that done.
Just for them culverts?
Yeah, just for those culverts. So I think that if we put this on a more planning process to address sometime in the future, that would be doable. But I don't think it's really doable, all things concerned, at the present time.
But everybody understand what I'm saying about the drainage. Now they're gonna put 4 more inches on the road. He's going to tilt it further. So when he comes from 41st out Smith, he goes right across my place to the canal going north and south. So just keep it in mind. All right, Rick?
Thank you.
I'm not mad with you, man. I just wanted to go through.
We talked about it. I told, we'll get to it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, so thanks.
We'll now move on to 10B2, public discussion, Louis Schacht. Good morning. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Louis Schacht, 1915 34th Avenue in Vero Beach. And a couple years ago, this commission divided the old jail property between the Boys and Girls Club and St. Francis Manor and added more land to the manor's lease. The manor's request and your intent was to provide enough property to add 2 more buildings to our existing campus. However, the cell tower that was in the middle of that property makes it impossible for us to add 2 more buildings to that section. We had hopes of seeing the tower move someday, but the pending sale of the tower virtually eliminates that possibility. Appreciate Commissioner Zork bringing this other possibility to our attention, and the commission recently deemed the large tract of land with the ball fields to the immediately south of St. Francis Manor as surplus. I've met with Commissioner Zork and discussed the idea of slicing a minimum amount of land off that piece of the surplus, and that action would satisfy your intent of adding enough land for us from the old jail property to accommodate 2 more buildings. It would also satisfy our need to continue to provide affordable housing for seniors in this community. So it seems like a win-win for everybody. the county would be able to still sell the tower at a premium, and the manor would be able to build more units, which the tower in its present location was rendering impossible. So,
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to
Move
bring
your-
up.
So, Mr. Shack, you're done?
that's my presentation.
And fine, you can stay there if you'd like.
Right.
We'll
There
move
may be a
immediately to
question or two that might,
Mr. Zorks.
might come up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we did recently declare the piece to the south of the manor surplus, and we're going through the process of identifying the right-of-way on 16th Street, corner clips, or any drainage that we might need for that piece going way down the road. My proposal would be, if there's consensus for this, is Mr. Shack had mentioned at the manor's expense to work with Carter and Associates to see what would be the optimum minimum size they would need to place two buildings, what dimension, what configuration, length and width it might be. It may be a square, rectangle, a dog leg, or whatever the least impact of the surplus piece would be. Also still maintaining that we may have to make adjustments to the access easement for the tower that we're selling. So at this time, I don't have a specific geographic footprint. I would instruct that Carter and Associates would develop what would be the needed size. They did the survey for the Boys and Girls Club and the piece that's in the backup. That's part of Carter's information. And then bring back to us what this modified piece would be, and then do a formal vote at that time to modify the lease once we know what the configuration would be. Also, yes, sir.
I was wondering if I could ask a question.
Sure.
Louis, moving from west to east, on the south side of your property, there's the line, the white line that goes across?
Yes, sir.
So my question is two parts. One is, do you have a rough estimate of how many square, the line just below that?
Right.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you have any estimate of how many square feet you'd need for the two buildings? And I'll just add to it that if you move that line from west to east straight across, to that point, if that would be enough land. I mean, and you don't need an answer today, but I mean, I'm just going to say that for me, that would cause me little real concern, and probably, the more impact you have on the rest of the parcel from there down, the more added concern I'd have. I mean, that's just
Right.
where I'd be.
My guess is that would suffice, but that's a guess and a little bit of
Yeah, I
speculation.
know, I don't mean to hold you to it now. I just want to bring that up now rather than after Carter did its work
Right.
and everything else.
Right.
So with that,
Yes. Commissioner Zork, if you could refresh my memory, the buyers of the current tower, it's so dilapidated, they're going to have to rebuild a new tower, is that?
They're going to
the un-
cage around the existing one, but I believe keep the guide wire points attached to the ground that would support the wraparound tower that they're going to put around the existing. That way they preserve, and I think maybe Mike or Bill might be able to add in a little bit more of the language. Their interest is because it has a height that you can't really permit so easily today. So they're going to encase the existing tower, but probably still utilize the guide wire points to the ground. Originally, back in the earlier discussion, if they were doing one of the flagpole type standalone towers, then the guide wires would go away and it would open up a lot of the footprint. But I think in discussions with the potential buyer, the wires were still required.
So then, how will this help? So Louis, would you guys be building south of the tower wires then? Is that where you'd be looking to go in?
Right, our impact would be immediately south, a little bit south and east, and potentially even east of the tower, just depending on what setback requirements are there from the tower and from the line with the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, so the line that Chairman Solari was referencing there, right about where the arrow cursor is now going to the right, just following that right-of-way line, that's where you all would be focusing most of your...
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I think we'd look for the simplest, least amount of square footage to take out of the piece to the south that caused the least discomfort.
Okay.
Louis, I realize where we are today. You have the crystal ball estimate of when you believe you would enter into construction?
We currently are leasing a piece that's in the very top middle of that diagram. immediately east of our northernmost building there and easternmost building.
Right.
We are in the process of hopeful construction to begin early 2017 on 2 buildings there. That's on our previous lease portion. And fundraising efforts are ongoing for that. So I would estimate for the next 2 buildings, I couldn't give a time frame. I'd be hopeful for 5 years. Just have to see how this campaign goes for the first 2. But this is a situation, obviously, where our demand is through the roof. Our waiting list is long. It stays at about 40 people. And this is our only real opportunity for growth.
So this is more for long-term planning than it is for immediate need or use?
It would be immediate use if we had the funds, but it's more of a fundraising.
Practically,
effort.
probably
Right.
be a little, okay.
And I had a question for the attorney. Counselor, how problematic is, or would it be to alter that lease? As far as the cell tower?
Oh, the cell tower lease?
Yes.
I know Bill's been involved in that. I'll defer to Bill.
I
on
think
that.
the goal is to leave that intact, but potentially modify if the access easement that we granted a while back needs to be adjusted, but the footprint of the tower surplus piece, I don't think we're planning on touching that because we don't want to disturb that.
I read some
Element.
suggestion of it, so I just wanted to ensure, and I want it out in the public.
No, it would be problematic moving the tower because of the height. The advantage of the existing tower is its height. It's 150 feet. Current city code won't allow them to go over 80, 85 feet, and it would have to be a stealth type tower, which makes moving it not a question as far as the value is concerned. We are asking any potential bidders in the purchase of this cell tower location to give us an alternate bid. The alternate would be to move the guy wires in some fashion that it would free up the space and allow St. Francis Manor to be able to expand into the old Boys and Girls Club.
So
Outstanding.
At this time, it really seems like it's under control. I mean, staff has enough understanding to know that we want to make best use of this property, that if the St. Francis Manor's needs are reasonable, that we'd probably consider some land to the south. It's just a matter of how much at this time. And I think that the consensus, that, well,
Makes great
we could
sense.
actually have the motion to work with St. Francis Manor and their work with Carter Associates to come up with an optimal solution.
I will adopt that same language as a motion.
And we have the motion from Commissioner Zork, seconded from Commissioner O'Brien. Oh, any other discussion?
And that's not a taxpayer expense, correct?
But
They're
he said
bearing the
that, so we're-
cost. Thank
we're
you,
good
Louis.
with that.
Got the cost.
Well,
So
on behalf of the manor, we appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We're now waiting for Commissioner Davis to get up and leave, and he's got a meeting up in Sebastian that he has to get to. Pleasure, sir. Thank you for staying as long as you could today. And we will now move to,
To the chair, I think we're on what became 8G.
Yes, your
or
matters.
what 8G became, actually 12C3. It'd actually be a recreation item. And Michael will start it off, although I'll obviously have some comments.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Michael Zito, Assistant County Administrator. At the meeting of just 2 weeks ago, you directed staff to bring back an amendment that would extend the existing lease at the 16th Street Ball Field Complex to the date of sale of the property as it was declared surplus, and so we prepared that with Dylan's assistance, and also in order to give the document binding legal effect, we inserted a date certain of November 30th, 2016. So that is what's before you. It was moved back to this point in the agenda so you can reconcile any impact on the lease with the request to speak and Commissioner Zork's item. It appears that the lease will not be impacted until such time as you convey the property to a third party or desire to carve out a conveyance to the St. Francis Manor. So with that, I would recommend approval after Dylan's comment.
Sure, and if it's the will of the board, I understand St. Francis Manor may not move forward for several years, but if the area that is currently under a license agreement or lease agreement with the 16th Street ball fields folks ends up transferring before the remainder of the property was, I thought maybe that the amendment to termination should be modified. And I was just drafting some language up here, is essentially the agreement for the use of the property shall terminate upon lesser approval of the sale of the property or November 30th, 2016, whichever comes first. That's how it's written. And then maybe a clause that in the event of a partial sale, i.e. part of the property goes to St. Francis Manor in the interim period, that that portion of the lease would terminate upon the approval of that partial sale. Thus, it gives the opportunity for the board to have a partial sale, terminate the agreement for that partial sale area, have the rest of the area stay with the 16th Street ball field folks, and once the rest of the parcel then gets transferred out and sold, then the whole entire agreement with the 16th Street ball field folks would be terminated.
And at this point, do we really need to go forward with that? I mean, the easiest thing may be just to if we do something with St. Francis Manor, in our agreement with St. Francis Manor, say that they have the use, the ball fields have the use of this property until this date.
Well, the only concern I've got is now I've made a contractual arrangement with this amendment with the 16th Street ball fields folks, and what I'm telling them is, don't worry, you get it until the full sale of the property, and now we're contemplating a partial sale, and it might be helpful for the amendment to reference some form of partial sale if that happens. Okay. I know I'm being the legal.
It just strikes me to be making some work that's not really necessary, but I'll bow to your suggestion. I don't think it's substantively important one way or the other, but if you feel procedurally it's better, I've got no problem with that. Gentlemen?
I have one item.
Mr. Chairman, you know, I felt that when we talked with the ball folks, we gave them a little bit of a comfort zone that they would be able to play there. Again, we said, you know, when it's sold, it's sold. But I believe we gave them a little comfort zone, and after today's discussion, that we might have some carving out. I believe that it's in good order and probably well respected to go forward with this today, so that we ensure that they know that there is a possibility of an alteration. I don't want it to appear that we said, okay, you have the nod, but oh, by the way, next week we're changing it, or we did change it, and I think that's what the appearance would be. So I believe that council is giving us a tool for a positive view on this. And again, Mr. Shack said he's looking at maybe 5 years from now, and if it is a partial, that they wouldn't develop that property in any way, and they won't make any improvements until then. So I believe that no foul if we go forward with this to ensure that everyone is well aware of what the possibilities are up the road.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Commissioner Fletcher's kind of analysis of this. Regardless if St. Francis Manor was here today or not, with Public Works looking at the additional right-of-way needed on 16th Street and future retention ponds, that change that would affect the description of the leased property would also be moving forward. Is there a way to reflect that this is its current condition today? We may, on paper, dedicate right-of-way future retention ponds and/or a piece that may be deleted from the lease, but their ongoing operations would stay the same until such time as we widen 16th Street or St. Francis Manor built or the property was sold. I mean, it's kind of overcomplicating it, but we have the same problem with the right-of-way we're going to be clipping off also modifies the description.
I just thought that this lease was with the ball fields was going to terminate in November.
At the latest, November 30th, 2016.
At the latest, so none of the other things that we're going to be doing are going to be occurring before then, so I just don't understand what the point is. That was my picture of it, but
But in the scenarios described by Commissioner Zork, we would still have that property and control of the property as, you know, we corner clip or excise out portions for right-of-way. If we say in September we're going to hand over to St. Francis Manor this section, then it's truly not within our control anymore.
And that section is not.
Correct.
Yeah, understood, but I would think that would be part of the process which the board asked you to go through when you have the discussions with St. Francis, to look at the whole piece, including the lease for the cell tower piece. I mean,
Yeah, and I don't think we necessarily, if we agree to carve out a portion for St. Francis, we can just wait till after November 30 to transfer that to them. I mean.
That's also true.
There's no urgency for them to get that lease modified. So I'm kind of with the chairman here. I think this is kind of.
As long as we don't,
Right away.
as long as the board isn't looking to do some, transfer between now and November 30th just to St. Francis Manor, then obviously the
Francis Manor doesn't care. I think they're more interested in knowing that they have an ability to get the land when they might be built than they are of having ownership or control of it at the present time.
I was just worried about a partial sale in the interim period, but if that's not contemplated, then it.
Just make it effective the day after. Same thing with the right-of-way designation.
Yeah, and, the parcel we're talking about there really isn't part of the ball fields either.
Right.
So it shouldn't affect any of the baseball games at all. I mean, so even if we did transfer it to St. Francis, it's not going to prevent them from practicing on the diamonds. It's north of that, so I'm happy with the lease the way it is. And
Yeah.
So with that, I'll ask for a motion to approve the lease.
Mr. Chairman, move approval for the lease.
We have a motion from Commissioner Flesher. I'll go ahead. Second from Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Davis absent. And with that, we now move to, my packet's a mess today.
14E1.
That is fine. Commissioner Zork.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of a continuing discussion of when we were looking at purchasing the property on 5th Street Southwest next to the new water scrubber facility that we put in. I don't want to call it Coyote Run, but that's the name that just sticks in my head, so I may accidentally.
I like that name.
It's just easier to remember. At that time, when I talked about public-private partnerships, I wasn't aware that there's actually a Florida statute that governs this. This item is more of informational only. After those two motions where public-private partnerships were discussed, I had some members of the IRNA and some other folks saying, well, what actually are those? And with Dylan's help, we looked through and found out that we have a whole set of guiding policies, procedures, is there a public benefit, a public need, criteria that would follow, whether it's a solicited or unsolicited private-public partnership. We had one last week with the Land Trust, and again, this is not tied to anything that the Land Trust has recently proposed, but that would be considered a unsolicited private-public partnership where they, as their group, came up with an idea, packaged it up, brought it to us and said, what do you guys think? Do you want to participate or not? They can be for-profit entities, not-for-profit entities, and there's probably some other entity types that are in there where this private-public partnership would work. So again, this is more of an informational item. There is some great analysis and figuring out what needs to be done and when to determine if a commission would consider undertaking both a solicited and unsolicited private-public partnership. So I just wanted to bring this information to the public that it's out there, and it's a great set of rules and has a lot of safeguards built into it if someone wants to approach the county in the future on these. And that's really all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I see he's trying to pass the gavel down.
When you're ready, you try to see if this works.
Thank you. I'm just, it's interesting how, two people can read something and have different reactions.
Right.
I read this and just frightened the bejeebies out of me. Seriously, I mean, this is
10
absolutely.
pages of bureaucracy.
It is. It's absolutely credible. I mean, for me, this is the path to big government, the path to crony capitalism, the path to perdition. I mean,
It could be, or it could be.
Well, I understand. Right. Well, but given my experience with bureaucracies over the last years, and the fact that almost behind every major problem any River County has today is another bureaucracy. I mean, the FUMPA kept flashing before my eyes. Right. What we would do. So I think that this is, first of all, I believe it was basically meant for communities like Miami and Orlando and Tampa that are huge and would consider a $100 million public-private partnership for a ball stadium or those highways which are toll roads that the private sector takes over. I mean, I don't think this type of thing was put in place for anything like I would hope we would do.
It was, I think, originally designed more for some roadway projects and other ones, but it has some utility to it that it can be applied.
Yeah, well, I mean,
other opportunities.
I think Dylan unfortunately probably has to understand what this says, and, you know, Dylan, have fun. I'll just bring out one, you know, the scariest lines of this. Responsible public, this is page 207 in the agenda, page 8 of 10. They always put these things towards the back. You know, you're probably dazed over before you get there. But this says, the responsible public entity may use innovative financial techniques associated with a public-private partnership under this.
Like private activity bonds?
Like that. And then it refers to federal loans proposed in Titles 23 and 49 CFR. I don't even know what the CFR means. All I know is it's some huge federal statute stuff. And ending with, and hedges against inflation from commercial banks or other private sources. I mean, if that is not the stuff of nightmares for a small county like this, I don't know. So now that I've scared myself to near death with that one,
Are you sure about all
Mr. Chairman,
this?
I appreciate your input because I had some of the same or similar feelings that this was just a primer to deprivatize the public-private partnership, and that I think we've done a fine job with some of our public-private partnerships, and we don't need to add layer of regulation.
Yeah, I'm good with that, but
that we
again,
have a safe public-private partnership.
we'll leave it to Commissioner Reingold to make sure we don't fall afoul.
Commissioner Reingold.
Excuse me, County Attorney.
Heck of a
Reingold
campaign, Commissioner.
To make sure that we don't fall afoul of the state statute. And thank you for making sure, Commissioner Zork, that we don't.
Yes.
And with that,
Oh, wait, let's go 3
we're
more minutes.
adjourned.